always tell how good it was. You got a million times. You did a great job. Thanks.
We'll call the meeting to order. And we'll stand for, please stand for the flag salute. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the city clerk please call roll?
Councilor Bowman?
Here.
Councilor Elliott?
Here.
Councilor Fisher?
Here.
Councilor Scott?
Here.
And Councilor Reeskamp?
Here.
Councilor Griswold is absent today.
Councilor Griswold apologized that she couldn't make it. She had a family emergency out of state. She was torn, and I told her the family was important, so she needed to leave, so she won't be here today. Okay, welcome for our goal setting session today. We will have a section of citizen comments, and we'll go through we have Gary Price. Is he? Where's he? Oh, okay. Gary Price is here, and he'll be our facilitator as we're getting into the goal setting and vision setting section. We also have the citizens' comments that we'll start off with. We're not going to have a timed session for that. I will keep a good watch on the time because we do have to move forward and we have a lot of things that we want to cover today. And one of the things as we set for this goal setting session is I wanted to make sure that we had enough time to cover everything. So if for some reason we just don't, I would like to mention that maybe we can continue the meeting on another day because I don't want to be locked into we need to finish this by 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock or 6 o'clock or whatever the time is. I want to make sure that we have plenty of time to cover the goals, to make sure that we have the vision set what we want to do. So if that's okay with the council, then we'll go forward with that, and if we finish, we finish. Starting off, we'll go with the citizens' comments. The council welcomes comments that will assist in establishing short and long-term goals for the city of Lebanon. Citizens may address the council by approaching the microphone, signing in, stating your name and address. For the record, written comments will be accepted and distributed if you have some written things that you want to distribute. We've also got a packet that the city council has received. It has several comments from citizens already written up to people that couldn't make it, and so we have those in our packets that we'll consider in today's session too. So is there anybody that would like to address the council? Okay. All right.
I'm not talking.
You're not going to. Good for him.
My name is Bob Thomas, and I live at 593 East Isabella Street. Don't have any big issues for you. I've recently begun to ride with the Boy Scouts and some of the folks that are on St. Anne's boats, and have noticed that the bike trails, the bike paths that are designated in the city, most of them have stop signs at every block. And so, I try to be a law-abiding citizen, but really what that encourages bicycles to do is run stop signs. And so as you're looking at your goal setting, there's a couple of things that I think the quality of life in Lebanon is right on the verge of, really expanding into some really good things. Build Lebanon Trails is really doing some neat things for the community. And I think if you look at the bigger picture of what Build Lebanon Trails is doing and expand that into the city and look at where your bike trails are running, like to and from Build Lebanon Trails. A lot of the bike routes in town dead end at no place rather than take off from, a park and end in a park. And so I think when you're looking long term for goals, you might consider where those bike paths are going, sort of get them off the main street so we're not into traffic as much, and I think it would encourage folks to ride bicycles more in town. a really good place to ride bikes. A lot of us like taking the Boy Scouts out. You know, we're a little cautious about which trails or which paths to go on. A lot of them are on really heavily traveled streets as opposed to maybe some back streets. And again, the stop signs really just encourage folks to race along. And, you know, we don't want to do that. But that's really what ends up happening when you start to do a little exercising and get your tempo up and have to stop. And the other one that I've noticed, I was on city council for 12 years before I moved to this community from Coos County. The other thing I've noticed is this, your town makeup has chunks and pieces of the county within what one would consider the city. And so, you know, I know that's got to be within your urban growth district, but, you know, I think it really makes sense from a person coming into town that provide those city services all around that county land. Maybe annexation could be in your list of things, long-term things to look at and review. Other than that, I don't have anything else. Glad you could have citizen comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just a side note on that too, I've talked to Rod Sell from the Lebanon Trails Committee, and then we also have talked to folks from the Transportation Committee too, and that is a goal that they have, and that is definitely something that we want to make sure that the trails are connected, and I know walking trails also are the same issue. We want to make sure that they're connected throughout the world. So, very good comments, thank you. Anybody else like to address council? Last chance.
They won't buy.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Okay, let's move on. Gary Price is going to be our facilitator, help us guide us through our goal setting today. And I'll hand it over to Gary. Gary's from LBCC, by the way.
Wow. How you guys doing?
Very good. Thank you.
Well, so this is going to be kind of unique for me. I've never facilitated a group with an audience before. So I'm going to have to get used to that for a second. So, you know, I just came from doing a presentation, so let me just take a minute and get myself organized here with that. I think that
while Gary's doing that, he did a presentation. He's from LBCC. He did a presentation on the Alternative Fuels Center over at the Chamber lunch today. And it was a great presentation, and it really explained a lot about what they're going to be doing over their facility. It's a very good presentation. Thank you.
thanks, Paul. Thanks for being there. I really appreciate it. We're very excited about what we're doing there. Okay, so what we're going to do here, so first of all, this is pretty quick turnaround, but I'm pretty confident that I want to talk a little bit, I want to have about a little conversation for a while before we dive in to the goal setting session itself. So I was able to ask you guys a few questions, get some feedback from you. Most of it was just kind of taking temperature a little bit to see kind of what you're thinking and about the 4 different questions. The content wasn't as important as just kind of getting a response from you and you being able to measure kind of how you're seeing the world a little bit right now. But so for those of you who weren't at the presentation, don't know, my name is Gary Price. I work at Lynn Benton Community College. I've been there since about 2000. I have done quite a bit of facilitation work with various groups in the past. I have some training in what's called the technology of participation. If you've ever been to, we're all professionals, right? We've all been through various trainings for one reason or another. Some of it we use more than others. What I learned in these facilitation trainings has been kind of the gift that keeps on giving, because it just helps me figure out how to get to solutions around problem solving. So I'm here to try to take what I know and kind of walk you through a process that I've got a lot of confidence in. We have worked with city councils in the past, and so we've kind of learned a few things about kind of goal setting and some of the things that we can run into. So as one of the questions I asked you was kind of trust the process that we're going to walk through, and you all agreed to do that. I want to just talk a little bit about goals and kind of what they mean to us. Many of you indicated in my questions that it was clear that you see that, you know, it seems like, okay, does the word setting a goal mean the same to everybody, you know? Well, maybe, maybe not. What we found in doing this kind of work is that the answer to that is no, you know? So what I want to do is have a conversation for a while, like I said, before we get into the actual session, and kind of try to align ourselves so we're somewhat on the same page of what we're going to do. So I kind of created this little diagram that that kind of is going to point out some things that I want to talk to you about, kind of get your input on, and get you thinking about. You know, as a facilitator, my role is not really, I'm not going to be setting goals for you. I probably will have, maybe some input once in a while. My job is to help you get through a process and get to the result that you're after, which we're going to kind of clarify here in a minute, which is going to be something that you've called setting goals for the council. That's my role. And I'll have some rules that occasionally there's different steps along the process, and there's kind of little rules of engagement that I'll be giving you. I really want you to pay attention to those, because there's things that we've learned that if you kind of pay attention to what I'm telling you at that stage of the game, I'll remind you when we get there, it'll help us move quickly. Because what often happens if you don't have a kind of process and a facilitator, what happens in a goal setting session, and I think I was in the men's group, Paul, but I think I heard you talking about it, is, 4 days later, okay. So typically, actually I've done, another thing we've done is gone into organizations and done the whole, what I call the whole enchilada. Start with strategic planning, right? And, that's, a strategic plan is a pretty big document. But what it typically outlines is, first step, and these go by different words sometimes, but these are the words that we use today, so we have common language. And what's called strategic directions. So if we were doing a big strategic plan, we'd come up with these strategic directions. Strategic directions are a little bit different than goals. And they're different because they're not very measurable. But they are an indicator of what we think is important. I took something that one of you said. And sometimes they will find the line between a strategic goal and a strategic direction is kind of fine. But I just wanted to take one comment. I thought this was two things I thought were good, kind of more, they were submitted as goals, but they really are broader. They're more of a strategic direction in my view. But somebody said more transparency, better communication with the public and media. And that's that's kind of a broad statement. When you think of strategic directions, that'd be kind of hard to measure, but we could come up with goals underneath of that, right? If that was a strategic direction, I'm not suggesting it is, I'm just using an example. But strategic goals, I think, is what we're going to try to work towards today. They're more operational, and they're really measurable. I see some nodding. Is that kind of what we're after today? Something really strikes us more as operational goals that we can measure, because here's how it works. You start with a strategic plan, which you guys have, and we're not going to do that today. You come up with these strategic directions, and you eventually end up with strategic goals. We're just going to enter into the process of strategic goals. We can do that, and we can do it effectively. But what I want you thinking about is eventually your strategic goals that we want to be measurable. They're also going to be operational goals. They're going to require an action plan by staff, right? So as we kind of get down to the end today, I want you thinking about to what degree is the goals that we are laying out for ourselves, and we'll prioritize those, and we can call them short-term, medium-term, long-term if we want to. But as a new council that's just getting together, my guess is you probably like to identify things first, and get to work on priorities. Is that a fair assumption? But I want you thinking all through this about eventually, many of the goals you're going to set for yourself is going to be for your staff to fulfill. And what I've seen in the past is this is where it can start to go wrong. We set these very amorphous goals. They can look more like strategic directions, and then we hand them off to staff and we go about our business, and staff is not clear about what it is that we're asking them to do. So one thing I want you to think about through all this, and when we're done, is let's try to get to some goals that are measurable, and that eventually we can lay out, that could be very clear for staff to fulfill. And because what I've seen again in the past is that, staff goes about trying to fulfill the wishes of council with not total clarity, and then we get frustrated because we're not kind of getting what we want. So we want to try to avoid that by being as clear as we can in our goals. You've heard SMART goals right before, you're all professionals. That's kind of what I'm talking about. I can't tell you what SMART means right off the top of my head, but I know it means it's something you can measure and achieve and do it. Okay? And then ultimately, we want to be clear about who's responsible to develop and implement the action plan. Now, I've got to tell you, when I say strategic, how many of you, when I say the word strategic plan, you get kind of a negative feeling about that? Give me a nod. Yeah. And I bet I can tell you why. Because we've probably been involved in organizations that developed a strategic plan, and boy, we did a lot of work, we felt really good about it, we pat ourselves on the back, walk away, stick the strategic plan on the shelf, and then never see it again until 4 or 5 years later we come back and do it again. What I've seen is that strategic plans can really be great for an organization, even like a city, but you've got to get this piece. You've got to get the action plan attached to the strategic plan. And typically it's by really kind of thinking through the tiers of direction that your organization wants to go. But again, we're going to start with strategic goals. I think I've got a plan that can do that for us. But I want you thinking about how you're going to follow up. And we can do this in our kind of debrief at the end. Are the goals clear? And how are we going to follow up? And how are we going to get are they clear enough stated that somebody can go to work on them and actually get something done first? Okay, fair enough. Comments at this point? Go ahead.
Listening to what you're describing between the difference between the strategic direction and strategic goals.
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories was told by Stephen Covey in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective.
Yeah, great book. Yeah.
And I forget which habit he was talking about, but he talked about the difference between people who are great leaders and people who are great managers. And he describes the differences. He said, imagine that the objective is to build the most miles a day of superhighway through a trackless jungle. He said the best manager is the individual who can get the team and the crew and actually get the most miles of road laid down that are functional. He said the leader is the guy who's ranging out through the jungle and climbing the tallest tree and looks around and says, hey, wrong jungle. And to me, that's the difference between strategic directions and strategic goals. We can have a huge amount of goals and great action plans and take it as a place we don't really necessarily want to go. And so I would ask the question right up front is, has this city articulated the strategic direction? Because any amount of goal setting we do that's not in harmony with that direction is probably a little bit of a waste of time.
I've thought about that, and I think to a large degree you're right, but I think in the limited time that we've got and kind of the directions I got, I think we can still be productive because we're going to lay out, the process we're going to do is going to lay out a lot of our collective thinking about what those goals are. And then I think kind of at the end, we can kind of work kind of backwards and see if those goals fit into something that if we would have gone down, worked in this order, to make sure, before we prioritize, that even though we haven't done strategic direction work, although we can change our mind, we can do strategic directions and strategic goals. But I kind of think we can do both.
Okay. Well, that's the area that I'm going to keep in mind. It's not clear in my own mind what I would call the strategic direction of the city. We have some generic ideas that people, we want economic development, we want good services, we want a few things like that.
Yeah.
But why? Why do we want to do that here?
Yeah.
And have we asked the really dumb question? Is public safety really the best thing we want to focus on? Maybe it is. But to me, I would want to ask some of those really, what you might call the dumb questions, to say, can we really peel back the layers that are built up around the self-evident? That's just my thinking.
Let's respond to Larry's comment. I mean, there's nothing's written in stone yet. So let's have this conversation before we get started. It's kind of like before we get started, we got to know what we want.
Yeah, I agree with that. again, I kind of use the term vision, but form a vision of what direction that we want to go as a council and as a city. And I think, you know, I'm willing to trust you if you think that we can do that together. If we can do both of those things together.
Ditto, I just want to focus on the
But it's a
fact
good
that
point.
for me, that's important to keep in mind on.
Yeah.
I think establishing that vision of our needs as a city, you know, and how we put that in the plan is something that I think we talked about today, and then attach some goals to that vision.
So we have a mission statement for the city.
Yes, we do.
Yes. I think somewhere in the papers that I have.
It's right.
It's on their, it's on their agenda too.
Oh,
the
well,
front
there you
page.
go.
And
There
you,
you go.
you have it to the left of you.
There it is, right there, okay, yeah. So, and I was looking at this on my paper, I kind of underlined a few in what I thought was important words. You know, the city of Lebanon is dedicated to providing exceptional services and opportunities that enhance the quality of life. And I thought present and future members of the community, as well as services and opportunities. I thought those were, you know, kind of key words in there. We were going to have a really deep conversation, it kind of took us from our mission down to our vision, down to our strategic plan. We always want to make sure that we're connecting those. But, you know, to some degree, I'm pretty confident that we can dive right into some of what we see as goal setting, and through that process we'll discover what's important to us.
And I'm with Paul, I'm
Yeah.
content to do that, that's one of the.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. I had an example. You know, I brought, you know, this notion of, you know, kind of strategic directions and then, you know, goals, because people use different words for them. Like at college, you know, college is a big place, right? We got to have our mission. We got to have our. We call them themes. You know, the strategic directions. And the themes at college are economic vitality. Doesn't that seem interesting? Community college or economic vitality is a theme. Educational pathways. And culture and enrichment. See, when you think about those are pretty things. I mean, you can't measure those very well, you know. But it guides, it tells us what's important to us, and we've kind of determined that in collaboration with our constituency. And so that's kind of what I mean when I talk about strategic directions. And it's back to what Eric said. Yes, understand what's important. Are we going? Yeah, we can do all this work, right? Do all this great work, but is that work guiding us towards what we collectively think is important? Or we carving a path through the right jump. Oh, a great road, you know, to nowhere. We don't want to have a road to nowhere, do we? And then, of course, we have our own goals, but I find we struggle with trying to get down to real measurable goals. And a lot of organizations do. I think it's easy to have a strategic direction. It's easy to set it. The difficult part is really circling back and measuring what you've done against what you said you were going to do, and give yourself some real feedback about, you know, where we're successful. So, keeping those things in mind, anybody else have any other comments they want to make before we kind of dive in? So, just a couple comments. You know, goals are typically not really tasks. Something a little bit more complex than tasks. Goals aren't really issues. It's not the issues that you're confronted with. You know, again, goals are these measurable action items that we can lay out in an action plan. Okay, I think I'm ready to roll. So I had my staff person come and leave a red bag that I'm not seeing. But hopefully she left me what I need. Which I believe she has. So, okay. So here is the first step of the process. Okay. We need. There you go. If you just put that out here, then that'd be great. Yeah, just right here is fine. First thing we need to have is a focused question, because I'm going to have each of you respond to it for yourself. And so we have to agree that the focused question is the focus of today. So I wrote one, and then I want you to tell me, you know, if it needs amendment or not. And the focus question is, what would you like for the city of Lebanon or this council to accomplish in the next 2 years? What would you like the city of Lebanon or this council to accomplish in the next 2 years? Now you think about that. Is that going to work for us? I mean, if that's the focus question, is that going to work for us? There we have pencil and paper. And I use these little colored, pieces of paper throughout the course of the day. Hi, Drake. So I'm going to just kind of put these out. We'll eventually get to them.
I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Are you asking that?
I'm asking if that's the question, if we can use that.
Okay, but does the question mean to sort of sift this down to one answer, or is there multiple answers from that question?
There's multiple answers to the question. So let me tell you what the next step of the process is and how you inform. I want to make sure that we got the right focus question, because what I'm going to have you do in a second here is I'm going to give you 7 minutes. And what you are going to do in the privacy of your own thoughts, on your own piece of paper, you can use the one I gave you or your tablet, you're going to answer the focus question with as many answers, not just one, as many things as you can write down. That would be the answer to this question, if this is the right question. I think it is, from what you guys told me. What would you like for the city of Lebanon or this council to accomplish in the next 2 years? Does that feel like the right question today?
I think partially.
Okay.
To me, it extends a little more beyond that.
Okay.
I know some of what I'm going to do in the next 2 years should have some lasting impact or some
Okay.
carryover, some
Okay.
kinetic energy that keeps rolling.
Mm-hmm.
So not just limiting to a 2-year time period, but does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense, because you're indicating, I want to think longer than 2 years.
Yes.
So what if we just said what if we made it a little bit more amorphous at the end, so that we don't want to, restrict our thinking to say, like, in the future, or, so I don't want to kind of get tied in short, medium, and long just yet. Those will emerge.
Okay.
So if you want to just change that last
So long as it
couple,
doesn't.
yeah, in your own
so
head,
long,
that's
I
fine.
don't care.
But let's do it. You can change the end to a different time frame if that works for you. Let's dive in. 7 minutes. Write down as many answers to the question. What would you like for the city of Lebanon or this council to accomplish in the next period of time? You can write them on the yellow sheets I gave you if you don't have your own paper, or you can do them on your own tablets at this point. We're eventually going to transfer onto those sheets. Okay? Everybody got their directions for now? Pretty clear? 7 minutes. This is a little stranger with an audience. yourself getting hung up on words or how you're saying it, but I really want you to just get it out. If it's something you should do, find a way to say it right now. Don't think about it, is it a strategic direction, is it a goal, is it a task? Say what's on your mind. And we'll sort all that out.
You want some water, is that what you're looking for?
What's that?
You're looking for some water?
No, but that's a great idea.
Mm-hmm. It's like. But I can't touch it because I can't hold the word. You can do it or you can't. I'm having it come to me not taxed, but I'm really not going to pay the taxes through my payroll, so eventually we get the same money. So, it's not as much because I'm older now, which is nice. I can't go best because generally I have retirement, so that's kind of why I'm the pension fund, too old and crazy. Utilities, where did you live? Where did you live? We come from the same stuff. Yeah, the gas company, the power company, the phone company, three good cases. Good stocks. Sorry, I didn't think about that. See, I was pretending you weren't here. Okay. I'll stop you right there, 7 minutes to work. Now, the next phase, we have a few instructions for you, okay?
So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna work together now in two, usually I have a little bit larger group than this. I like to have at least 3 or 4 groups. But I'm gonna put you into 2 groups, one's gonna be 4, one's gonna be 3. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to go, and we got plenty of time for this phase, by the way. Because this is the time I want people in the group, you're gonna kind of share what you're thinking with each other. Okay? You're gonna share your goals. So if I was one of the guys, and it was me and Linda and Floyd, I might decide to go first. Okay, I'm gonna read you through my, whatever I've got down here, I might give a little explanation of what I was thinking. Just enough to, you know, for the rest of the group to understand what it is I'm saying. Because what you don't want to get into here, the warning is, as I put it here, is it's a getting off in the weeds warning. What we don't want you to do is try to solve a problem or implement the goal or even, you know, get too elaborate about the impacts of it or who might be affected. All we really want you to do is have a chance to communicate your goal, what you're thinking of what you want to, I'm calling it a goal, but really it's just an action item. It's like, what do we want to accomplish with the rest of the people in the group, okay? So the warning is, try not to get, you know, don't find yourself wandering off. You know, it's 30 minutes later, and you know, Floyd hasn't. We haven't finished with Floyd because we keep grilling him about what he's saying. Like, you know what I mean? It's not a time to argue or challenge or even to. I don't want to say it's not a time to evaluate because there is going to be a little bit of evaluation at the end. But you getting my point? Don't let yourself get too sidetracked here. We're just trying to share our thinking with the people in our group. I think the most important thing there is don't try to solve anything yet. So, typically, if I know the group better, I like to organize people that kind of come into it with different kind of views of, you know, having interacted with each other. I don't know the answer to that. So, I guess, Paul, do you feel like you're in a position to group us into a group of 3 and a group of 4 based on diverse views of the world?
Do you want 2 groups?
1 of 4 and 1 of 3. Because there is only 7 people participating.
Only 6 today.
John, you participating?
No,
Up to the mayor and the council.
Okay. So it's
I
either.
would assume
council
not.
goals.
Okay,
I would assume
okay.
not.
All right. Because I saw you writing, so I thought.
Well, I just wrote for my own benefit.
Okay. All right. So it's 3 and 3.
Okay. It's like picking teams in baseball.
It's an executive decision.
How about myself, Bob, Barry, and then the other 3, you guys?
Okay.
I think that'll roll a little bit different.
So it's Paul, Bob, and Barry. You guys. So if you guys kind of want to find a corner to huddle around, and then you know, the other 3, maybe that I think that table right there in the back is perfect. Like, yeah. Now don't go yet. Okay. So what I'm giving you is a full. We'll start with 30 minutes. Okay. So again, do you think you're pretty clear on what we're going to do right now? I'm going to stop you after the 30 minutes and we give you another set of directions. But for now, share your thinking with the other people in the group. And I'll be watching. If you finish up, we'll move on.
And the end result of this is?
The end result is then we're going to make some decisions in your group about where you kind of where your thinking overlaps. And,
Okay.
and then we're going to forward something out of it. Okay.
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 So it's not like this is a good idea or a bad idea necessarily?
No, you're actually not evaluating it at all. You're just listening to each other.
Okay.
That's probably the best thing to do. Listen to each other right now. Okay. 30 minutes.
Then the audience gets to vote.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you.
Sorry to make you late.
Was that your intention? What were you talking about before I got here?
Oh, lots of good stuff.
Do it. Yeah. Oh, thanks for sending that.
Yeah, and I don't know if I answered that one.
Okay, so I want the one before that.
Right,
So if you
okay.
can get me the date, I'll go ahead and do the form applications for it.
Do you have a number for them?
Well, how did you get it? If you just take this only.
Okay, I didn't
Just
know.
take it here. We've got, I imagine, for 17 years, and I made
staff.
And if he wants to release any security documents of the cost evaluation, that would be great.
Okay, all right. Okay, so if you want to stay, you're welcome, but if you want to take off, you're welcome.
It's gonna be like a 4-hour process, so. If you like seeing the sausage make.
Okay, that's cool, thanks. I wasn't sure if I knew. Jason said he would like
I'm upset because
right.
other jackets, like my favorite jacket is different.
Myra, you're going to come.
Oh, my goodness.
So we get this, so this is fine. Don't worry about it, we'll pick it up. Sure.
Donate it to some place.
No way, that's good. Okay. Get rid of that picture you took of me on
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Trey.
Actually, now she wouldn't let me buy it. She'll buy it. Just further on. Wait a second, who did he release? I'm staff kinda, right?
No.
Well, maybe, I don't know, was I talking to Jerry?
No. I read too many questions.
See how long I make it for.
So I'm like,
I might need cheese taser before I'm done.
And then about 7 years ago, I went to work
Yeah.
so he's an example of a guy.
Hi, how's it going? I have to talk to you. I didn't do anything. Oh, he did.
Got a 4-year degree and he's doing extremely well ever since.
So how high up in Toyota?
Well, I wish you were higher up, but I would say.
Sounded good.
He's kind of still mid-May.
You're gonna have cookies, you can just leave it prior to now.
I just saw him today. Ben Silverman's record. So for that, yeah.
Yeah, I gotta have so many years where you can go to years, so many years where you can go to years. So this is reserved this 5 years to get out of that first. Executive to get out of the second. Yeah, so you can sell the potential there. Programs basically, you get great jobs.
Yeah.
That's just. Yeah, I know, with great pay and benefits, yeah, absolutely. No question, the jobs are there, good paying jobs.
How boring these are. I think I've got 4 of those down there. Our economic development meeting, we should have John and then John Pascal. That's one of the this is used to be. Sometimes we need to be. It's up near the chamber. But it's public jobs there, careers there, lots and the city, the school people, work employment, anyone applying. It was good. Yeah. My taxes, we were pushing, you guys are fair. How much, just a rough idea, 5,000. Could you consider 5,000? 78-year-old husband was dying. Well, anyway, so he called me back and he goes, I made a mistake. You guys are getting back to me. I said, my husband almost killed himself. I'm very happy. I mean, how do you make a mistake like that? We paid $2,600 more than we needed to. And we did it on purpose because last year we had to come up with $2,000. And he told me, he said, well, you guys went down $3,000. I said, we were supposed to go up. So we were just absolutely blind. He looked at the wrong year. So we fixed it. But I know it. And I'm turned the down to half a year this month, so I can now start collecting a pension from my lease for the Southern California, Edison, California. I've been there for 24 years, I have a pension. I thought, you know, I'm not going to wait on 65 and take it. And all I have to do is between 8 and 9. So, but I gotta take taxes now too. I'm not just spending, it's gonna go into simple things. So that I can have a retirement when I get out. I'm being smart and doing my job. You coming to the DSA banquet? I haven't seen any tickets fly across my desk. Your wife's coming. There's no table. We're gonna have tables sitting around you, a whole bunch of buffet stuff. It's really much better because you get anything you want as much as you want. You can sit down. Want me to have send you 4 and then you wish you? I'll take care of it. Really? She's already got it. Well, that would be really nice.
That just bleeds into their life. And so they are predisposed.
I am as well. Carol and I are going.
Relationship, personal relationship, friendly.
You're our little sister. If we don't come, nobody will. This Toastmasters thing I'm doing, I got an email from the gal at Stockholm. She loved the junior Toastmasters idea, and she wants to get their high school. I said, let's do the 2 high schools together. And then Frank Moore, you know, he wants to sponsor them. So, but he wants to have it for Boys and Girls Club. I told Chris, this is perfect because if we do it between Sweet Home 11 and we can meet one time here and one is naked between the 2 Sweet Home Boys and Girls Clubs, the 2 high schools. How perfect is that? Yeah. Did you?
Let me know.
How did you feel? It was very helpful to me.
Very things that can make us stand out.
Was that in the book? Not her. To her? Why would it be next to her?
Even the 3 additional years.
Yeah.
Or you just like
Really.
So basically, right now is weird.
So Gary, did you make any new relationships for the fleet stuff today? I saw a lot of people interested.
This one guy came up and talked. He's
Oh, healthy home? Maybe I'm talking about somebody different.
Oh, he's probably had.
Yes.
Kind of runs into.
We know. We know. Target.
So he feels it for a couple of months.
I never thought about that. That is very smart.
So he was inquiring. You know, but it's so we'll be talking. It's smart.
Tim Manson. told Brent, you now it's a peak. He said, you ought to get your peak. He said, yeah, he said, every house. You already have a relationship. Absolutely.
So are you doing the hiring? Dispatch? When I talked to Scott.
Hey Frank, is she through drilling you? Can I borrow you? Are you through drilling you?
No, I'm
Right,
not.
finish, okay.
Because I can't find a friend.
Oh, was he? Well, you need to be now.
That's still something.
So is that affecting your, since you have no motors, is that affecting your taxes?
Oh, really? I thought patrons actually.
Is there a number you can give me in percentage?
That. We have a great season, right under a.
Finding their house.
I'm gonna try it
When do you expect?
Oh, well, that's good.
What's the reason you won't
Always screwing that, yeah. That's what I'm saying. Have a nice weekend.
Oh, you get to go home? Your husband, he's the craziest man ever. He says, well, when's the board meeting? He doesn't want to be on the board, and then he wants to win the board meeting here. To tell you what, he sent me so many different messages, I was totally bewildered. He goes, oh, you women, you never understand. I said, then you don't communicate with us, and you don't. Yeah. I would say communication. Yeah, no. I still am, and it was like out of nowhere. So.
Yeah, the community service police. Yeah. So they find their religions, yeah. And but another thing is, do we advertise that? Do we promote that? I don't think we sell ourselves.
So the last round.
I couldn't really know what it's all about.
So you hired everybody else instead of hiring you. How's that?
How well is it?
When do you expect to do that? Is that you doing it or committee?
We don't want to. It's great. And I never could understand him what he wanted to do. I'm not sure why he said originally. I told him, I said, well, well, if you think you have someone else to sell, I never got the feeling. I wasn't sure why he brought it up in the first place. And I told him, I said, I can't tell what he's got here for sure. And you didn't tell me that other women you never, that you guys never, I done. I'm trying to do something. I just assumed that he wanted to. And I never asked him, I just assumed. But at a different level.
Okay.
2 months, you said?
For me is at least 4 staff.
I know that other things we wanted to do sort of dating them on
Lots of questions, but you can answer them.
Think you're doing it right.
Some people
I heard rumors of parking for us. Parking.
She wanted us to meet each other.
Oh, yeah, I bet you, when anytime.
I've had that feeling briefly. I don't want to do anything. That makes sense. I mean, that makes sense to me. Now, see, that emotional, you would never explain it. No, again, but that makes sense to me, and I even have an idea of what we're talking about. I totally get that.
Well, welcome aboard.
No, second. So the reason he's important is because he's, all of the stuff happening at LBCC, the medical school, and then, maybe the nursing, whatever's coming here. He's in charge of the LBCC, so not only they're a great part, he's our contact. So, and you need to have your whatever they do here. Thus, there's a relationship, you know, you guys are looking at it.
It's important. I think we're going to start talking about this when you start talking. So I didn't actually hear what you
I'd like to see.
Oh, yeah, that's another conversation.
It's funny, we went to all these schools and after.
You can monitor it.
That's right.
Uniform on that guy, right? That's cute. When you wear that, you now you know who he is. He's like a regular guy without that. Okay, so you're always excellent. Okay, you're always in that fight. Well, how does do when they test like, you know, you can field where they do the conversion if you let them test it and track it or something, you know? Have a good day. Thank you. So thank you for saying that. But you don't say the rest now, it all of a sudden makes sense. Ding, ding, ding. So I think, you know, it had nothing. I knew it. I really had to stand it. And you never. When they were like, I told Gary.
Communication between the city. Relationships.
And then it would be like passive aggressive. I just knew that he didn't want to. So I didn't know. So I just tell me what you want. You know, why would you get? And he said, go ahead. Okay. And then he asked me, so when's the appointment? So you could share that. But actually, I really do appreciate it. It makes sense. Much more sense to get
We cut off that catering.
I never want to see that.
So expensive to keep.
I thought it wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
I already told them 80+ people, that's a different.
You get to go home.
No, I don't. We didn't go back to our dinner. But actually, I had all these things. I didn't have a picture. At first, it just said, you know, show up if you want. I had all of them, which I didn't get over. I didn't see what's going on with Kelly, which ought to be a lot of fun.
And that is all stuff I've got to do.
Probably will get back in my catalog.
All right, those are your catalogs. Thanks, Carol.
Was it great?
August, September, so 2 months after they still have to flesh out. They said they evaluated him in number 26 and said that he had shown numerous and serious deficiencies trying to figure out what the complaints are. Well, like this is what this is. Regardless of if you're in the house, otherwise all satisfactory. Failure to complete the assigned
Why don't I also try to find?
any other qualifications, seriousness of justice, discharge. They don't.
So I didn't have to.
Yeah, they put in a bunch of
City manager, maybe one department manager. And it's two councils. It's two offices. They always did that, because each ward kind of does have its own unique, sometimes its own unique service. That would be really.
Because basically they were saying that they didn't even have to tell the ones who was fired. And I don't know, I would have to, I think you just have to do,
Because I think this.
I feel like they're doing faster things.
You just have to continue to just do good, just keep doing the right thing. And eventually, they will say they'll come to work.
The first two
Hands are
times
direct,
they had
they made it up to you.
were,
But I mean, I'm not answering every, and I'm answering it ad nauseam. That's the right thing. I'm sitting down on Sunday night and I'm typing out a paragraph for every question. And explain it all. Because that's what it takes. To express it.
how it interacts with others who develop for a bunch of times, they're complex and deal with other city departments. And so you need the department to accept it and directions that come from the city manager. I'm only about halfway through it, it's gonna take this, but
When
unless there's
you
a
peel
job,
back,
they
it's now
specifically say, on this day, they do this, and this is why they live up to our standards. The official evaluation was not done on 26, like so we touched on. We resigned, like, they entered and we signed agreements, no later than December 7th. And so that's 10 days. Yeah, about 10 days, where he had to approve. Especially because if they're giving him
When I do well, then
I don't want to make a statement because I haven't gone through the entire document and Ben's actually been, he's talking to my parents, but they make sure that I'm frustrated. They're better friends than I am. Trust me, I understand. But it doesn't sit right. It doesn't sit right. And the other thing that really makes me suspicious is how often does my dad get rid of it?
This is the first time I've ever seen him do it.
Exactly. Whatever he had been talking about, I felt he would enough to write a letter not only to 11, but directly to the actual. He hasn't done that in my entire existence. And so I don't know what they talked about, but it was sincere enough and important enough that my head is like, I'll take actions I have never seen.
Discussion thoughts. They have a different insight.
Because I hate making a stance and then some little fact out of the side just
You
comes.
feel stupid. Oh, now I understand. Yep, that's wise for, no knee jerks.
Let's just say that there are reasons that villagers to be taken out of healthcare packages. No, it was in the resolution.
So we're gonna do next
That
step.
it was terminated.
All that chance to So I want you to boil it down to 8.
So I heard you on KGO.
Really?
Talking about, you were talking, they were talking about closed session.
I want you to, so you kind of have to read.
They must have
You're
recorded.
like crabgrass, you're everywhere.
I know, it's everywhere. I didn't hear more about
And I
mine.
want you to do is write it, the strings to cars. Boil it down to
No,
Everything buzzing.
They didn't
Oh,
know
you're
they were
such a
recording.
crabgrass. I can't do that from here.
What we do is.
I can't, I don't have, not, no, I do it on my real computer.
And you put one.
Yes, you're gonna be buzzing. Oh, what day is it gonna be? Actually, it's good on a Friday, because you guys can put it Wednesday.
I don't know, are you?
Trying to get you. One per car. Eight. Oh, yeah, they're all right.
Is he with the grab? Yeah.
So he's the first one. So she's the second. Pretty much my Lacey.
Never called
And
him.
so I told Matt, oh, it's him.
Oh, thanks a lot. Wait, am I the only dumb one?
And so, look at it, it's got 155, and I have 89, and that.
Well, how do you do it? Are you got all three of you playing?
Yes.
Oh, that's cool. I like that. How do you do that with three?
I'll show
Gonna say like.
Never mind, I don't want to play
you.
anymore.
Well, the same way
You hear-
we did it.
But
I don't think so. See, that's how dumb I was. If I was playing with three of you, I didn't know. I really didn't.
No, not right now, it's just kind of, maybe about.
I mentioned a couple things, just because I was there.
Tim's word recording, it's all his letters, the same amount of
Yeah.
That's for saying.
How
Get all my new vocabulary.
He'll be on it at 11:30 at night. You can all be on it.
I don't want to find this.
because there was somebody
Again, identify.
This is full road.
Yeah, like.
No. No.
Yeah, this is gonna- Plus,
It doesn't.
He's on board.
It's enough to where it's already gone down. And the next two pairs this week. What's going on, anything? You saw that Chief Boy sent you the location? And I sent her a note that said we've already made the last 500 pieces of paper.
We're working on getting you guys.
Okay, so I got it, you guys have yours, right?
wow.
Maybe.
They haven't done this work then.
No, they haven't done it yet.
We did I think we're doing, did Jan send you that flyer? Perfect, so we're all gonna go on the next one.
Start with, I mean, pick the best one for my list, the best one.
Don't be careful about it. And everybody has left the meeting except for me, and Audrey, and Wyatt, and city employees.
Here though.
What?
I'm getting paid to be here though. Oh, you are?
Yeah, of course. What you say, Mary? Oh, there's a few audience people and,
So 3 to 5
so it's gonna be like a 4-hour session, so.
or increasing the base.
So, did we make money today or did we lose money?
I think the problem is that
I'm really sorry to sign those checks, because I'd like to get those in the mail today. That's right, you did not issue the check for. Okay, between, she's like a half a grand, $4 probably. She got a really good fold. Yeah,
I got that on Monday. It came in and then like by 3 o'clock, they could tell. And so I went home and then.
what did you take? You just said yours great.
I survived the night home. My kids' bedtime and everything, and then I clocked out.
Wow.
And then the next day, I got up, took him to school, came home and slept until I took him out.
Man, so that's all she needed was to go to sleep. I sent her home early 2 days in a
Matt
row.
got it too, and he said, I left early and I got up. and-
Really, the only way you can get better is to rest your body. I've been sitting home early. Yeah, really good vitamin machine, so I don't get sick. Everybody, I went to Walmart and everybody's coughing and hacking on me. Well, they can't help it.
Peter got it. He was the only one who got that.
We don't consider it law.
Somehow, I don't know.
Or your law firm doesn't consider it. Well, it's a single attorney. Well, now, we're going to 2 new attorneys.
Oh, I haven't had a chance to read through it yet.
You gotta cut the budget, you gotta cut the budget.
Well, got it. Here it is.
Oh, the one?
Read more about it. You reading through it? Have you read through it?
I do it something like sit and study. I talked to Wyatt, showed me, so I was telling you. He must have put on the Express.
The whole thing, this is what I.
Maybe they put it on the city website. Oh, that's what
Yeah.
I
I just did that.
maybe
That was it, and then I put a link to where. That's what we decided to do.
No,
At least they did it on Friday, so you could have it the rest of the week.
So,
My mom's taking my other.
Well, I had, the other night when I played, I had my husband and Sean helping me. And they are not as dumb as I am. We're well placed.
My mom, I'm playing my aunt also, my mom's sister, and she's amazing. No, but she cheats. She looks on the things like Scrabble helper
Oh, yeah.
and throws your letters up there. And
I play with the dictionary usually, but I know with you guys, because they back up. I should have never started with so many people. And I get overwhelmed and I just throw anything on there to get to the next one, you know? Yeah, but that's what mine looks like, and it makes me feel dumb, and you guys are all meeting.
So my mom's always happy if I meet my aunt, because my aunt's so good.
See, and your mother made you, so it's like a double whammy.
right.
So have you ever had a starting where we use everyone's letters? I have, and I thought that was so great. I was playing with Bev at the LBCC, and she didn't even comment. She didn't even. Oh, that's a good one. There's a D on the end of Esquires.
You can.
I didn't know that. But she didn't even acknowledge it. I don't think she noticed. She's very good at it. She quit playing with you. I got all excited. She didn't even notice. Well, sorry.
You quit playing?
Yeah. You could play with me. Probably because I'm so slow getting back to you. As far as you guys make.
Well, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, I should have talked to you.
There's more agendas.
Have them bring Tell her to bring me one too. I'm gonna hop.
Well, if it is truly out there, but yeah, this is more technical. Making sure we do that. And I think that, okay, we can do all sorts of.
She knows how to get it.
Ask if she's a friend.
Yeah, tell her it's the least she could do. We both have to work here. And it's like a 4-hour meeting and they've already had half an hour.
And my mom's. My husband did a training thing.
What does he do?
He's a teacher.
Oh, really? Locally here? How high did you go that? Very good. What does he teach?
He's specialized in social media.
More rewarding classes. Teaching. You only got 2 letters. One word the other. You know that za is a word?
Yeah, it's short.
It's short for what? It is? You call it za?
I think it's a back east.
Really? I didn't know what it meant. I just was excited to use it.
I challenged him on it because he was using his phone carefully and last year we should.
September will be accent.
No, I didn't.
Industry, retail.
So,
You can teach me how to beat you.
I'm gonna teach you how to do this.
You don't think he'll notice that all of a sudden I got smart? My brother said, Mary's playing with you again, isn't she? I said, no. He goes, come on. I said, yeah.
You can click on any letter and see as long as it's letter.
Oh my God, that's handy.
Yeah, and then you have a dictionary where you could put in.
Does all of us have that same thing? Oh man, you guys are, better find somebody new to play with.
Bring
I
it.
think the,
I'm up for the
I'll
challenge.
start a new game so I get fresh. My friend Mike Bell in Texas, oh my God, he is the best I've ever seen.
to me, that's a really important one. Yeah.
My friend Lacey's son, she's great. She's a dual biology major and
These academic types,
journalism
boy,
major.
they're really a yawn, you know?
Great. Always trying to put words.
yawn?
I'm really a yawn, but you know, when you play, I play with Penny York, we play to Scrabble, and the words you guys come up with, they're like, what the hell is that? Academics, you guys can come up with the weirdest words. You've never been a yawn. You've always been fun. But you don't have a doctorate. See, that's the key. When they get that doctor in front of them, or do you?
Doctor.
Yeah, when they become a Dr. York or Dr. Heyman.
Or piled higher and deeper in me.
Exactly, that's when they
Dr.
become.
Evan's orange?
No, it's not
Oh.
orange.
Oh.
Like, you met that guy, right?
Well.
They communicate at a different level than I do. But I learned from them. I learned a lot from Penny.
Everybody has something important to say. That's what
I really have enjoyed my relationship with her. I didn't think I would at first, but I've learned so much.
Well, if you
It's
just,
a different point of view, and I like that.
yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, it makes me a better person.
It's kind of like, I've found myself saying, if I'm in a room with 3 people and they both think the same way I do,
Yeah, somebody's not thinking. You know, what's Alan Fudge doing? He's still with
He's
college.
teaching now in the business division. He's a classroom instructor.
He's one of my favorite people. He
Yeah.
came in and sat down and talked to me after you left. And you know how territorial I was when I first started. I didn't care about Albany or Corvallis. I only cared about Lebanon. And Alan came in and he explained to me, very sweetly as he is, and he explained to me the advantage of when you work nice with the other. Then when the state looks at funding or granting, they like it. They like to see us working. And when you do that, they're more open to throwing money at us. And what a difference it's made in the way I think. Is now with LB, because we consider Benton County too. And just everything we do, there's so much more good that comes out of not being competitive and just being cooperative. What's the word?
Yeah, collaborative.
Collaborative, yeah. And Alan, I can tell you that Alan pushed me, because I didn't want to do it, because you know what a butthead I can be. But he was so right, and I will always be grateful for him for making me see that. He literally had to sit down and make me see that.
Yeah, and that's good. And it is true, because it's sometimes difficult for us to get over our sense of trying to protect our own self-interest, which is sometimes we see as our responsibility. But the truth is, we win together.
Oh,
we win bigger together.
Bigger.
And that might mean opening up and feeling vulnerable about what you think you're supposed to protect.
Yeah. So it's made me a better chamber director, and it's made me a better person, and it's definitely made me a better board member, because I feel now when I go to Benton County, I can feel the way they feel about their Benton Center, like I feel about my Lebanon Center.
Yeah, and you're in a role now, you have to respect that and
Absolutely.
internalize it.
But Alan Fudge is the one that literally forced me to see it.
I wonder what made him
Put it off a year and then.
Because he could see.
Is that when he was working with you as on your finance committee?
I think yes, but I think you involved him on economic development or something, because I had never met him until you introduced him to me, and you had him attending something, and I don't know whether it was eventually finance, but there was something else, and that's when he could see that I was kind of closed-minded about sharing, and he really did. He made a difference, and he wouldn't leave until he convinced me. And he's so sweet. He's soft-spoken. He loves finances. You know, numbers. What a yawn. So those kind of people are never aggressive. They're just sweet and nice. He would not leave till I got it, and I got it. What a difference. Will you tell him that I shared that story with you? Because I really have always been very grateful for that.
As spring and summer comes along, we usually end up on the golf course together once in a while.
Excellent. Maybe you'll be in my tournament.
They've got me. I'm running so hard right now at the college. If they don't, if who I'm about to go see is directly related to what I'm involved in, I don't see them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Who's your sidekick?
It's kind of where we are.
Who goes when you can't?
Well, I honestly right now I kind of don't have one. When as the director of the centers, I don't really have any kind of managers that I work with there or support staff that is it's like an administrative assistant.
That's too bad. You sure could use one.
Well,
Because you can't be everywhere.
We're going to reorganize. I'll have a pretty large workforce development centers and the advanced
You
transportation.
get to pick them?
No.
Too bad, because you could pick your, that's nice if you could
Well,
pick.
inside my own little group,
Yeah, so you
I
could
can
pick
work
your
with somebody.
sidekick. Yeah, that's
You drive
good.
them out though, and downtown.
Because you know the kind of people that understand your vision. That's important. Whoever sees your vision. That's
Well,
what
I give you
I'm saying.
stuff like this. Sometimes you just need somebody, and I was able to just get one of my supporters to come. At a 9:30 meeting with the ATTC, then 11 o'clock, 11:30, presentation. And then here, I needed somebody to get over here. And, it seems like a minor thing, but I couldn't be this morning.
So did somebody bring it over?
Yeah, one of my
Good.
staff did. Came in. Then they came in early. I got things set, or I could just waltz in and go.
Improving customer service.
But once the ATTC
See, outside the box ways to,
then you got faculty down there, you got students.
or are we involved?
But we're still shooting for
Partners there.
October business after hours there.
Okay.
And if you need to postpone, what?
Well, I need to postpone.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we might not meet our get students in their goal, but
Good.
well.
That is, I think it's perfect timing. We're gonna load that place up.
Emily asked me to ask you.
Yes. Did she tell you that story?
No, are you gonna be there?
Her and Wyatt, they were out running around, and we left somebody.
We're begging Emily to come bring us coffee.
And her and Wyatt were riding together. That's a mistake. And I said, we changed our locations, and I said, somebody, don't forget Joe, which is one of the guys. He was at another location. They said, okay, and they come walking in 15 minutes late. Where have you been? I'm like mad at the hill. And she walks in with a cup of coffee. We got you some Joe. We didn't forget about the Joe. That's why I felt so bad. She thought I wanted to bring me a cup of Joe. I wanted her, and Wyatt's too young to know that. Well, you'd never heard that cup of Joe routine, had you before? Was that new to you? So he was going along with it because she said, no, she means cup of Joe. It was really funny.
Oh, I thought that you meant like a comedy bit. I know that coffee's called Joe.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Thanks for making me come down.
I knew you loved it.
So we laughed about that, my miscommunication, and then being mad at her for being late and walking in with coffee. Like, oh, but you made us all wait for you to get coffee. She's good it for me.
Poor Emily.
Maybe I need to tell that story at the DSA base. That would be a funny story. I'll have to find a way to say it.
You yelled at her?
I didn't know it. She's so sweet.
I finally realized that the 3 voting was, okay.
Yeah.
Gary, this is like watching paint dry.
Committed myself to looking after examples
What's she talking about?
just, I guess.
Who brought them?
Yep, she's right. I had Mary go get them.
From where?
Oh, Safeway, because Myra didn't have any.
Oh. But no, see. If they're Myra cookies.
We called and she didn't have any. Trey wanted some, and I was trying to be obedient. Because he scares me, and I took a bad picture of him for Facebook.
You did? Hold it over you?
Yeah.
You know that guy who got in trouble for taking pictures of manatees? And he posted them on Facebook?
Why would that be illegal?
Because they're endangered species and he was lifting it out of the water and
Oh, he
having
was
his
touching-
kids sit on it.
Oh,
And
like I understand.
Serious.
That's ridiculous.
Horrible.
You're saying sit on the manatee.
Kind of weird, I guess.
Sounds like a weird man.
Things to do. Pick it up out.
Well, yeah. You can remove it, you still can remove it.
How long is this supposed to be?
He did not, that's one of the things he said was they weren't gonna limit what time, because he said if they don't finish, they'll do it a different time.
What does that mean if they don't do it though?
That means, I don't know when they're gonna cut off, but they're not gonna stay until midnight. If there's a lot more, I think Gary's gonna make it before they finish.
Finish at what time? Because really, ends is here for the regular session. Here. City manager.
So, I mean, I think your policies that you would want in place are.
Just go out and do this.
Is she gonna do it?
No, I was saying I probably could, because so many things happening right now.
So she's not gonna do it then, huh?
Oh,
Pretty damn rude. Or I'm gonna have a microphone of 300 people in front of us, she really doesn't wanna do that.
Use the same words over and over again. That's like in our website, you know, like get people to traffic to our website, there are rules in the state.
that is good.
Every one of our, you know, whatever we write, we have to use the word That's how you get people. Yeah. We're getting close here.
Hey, John?
Good answers. It shall be. Based on yeah, there are several layers. No, he doesn't have that.
Although I would say to balance that out, I was all trust contract, I was contract all the time. And the lawyer was out, let me, we have the city of Francis built on here.
Looks like they fixed the roof a little bit across the way. Not curling up like it was. And then might just some minor repairs.
It's easy for you. What do we just get different?
Everything you can say, this one.
Guys, can you get wrapped up?
Yeah. You want one more?
Well, if you can squeeze one out, it always gets harder at 7th and 8th one. If you stretch it, we can go for it. Eight?
Yes. What you were talking about. Said something. Oh, this is like taxes. When you were complaining about that, you're
Yeah, we've lost our
Next time do this.
Yeah.
Will you? Yeah.
all right. That's good.
Is she bringing her coffee?
It's usually we have a few laughs and try to get some levity, you know? Yeah.
And then you're on video too.
Does that stand need to get out of your way
You
there?
know what? It is
Oh, no.
actually.
I think some coffee, if we're gonna be spending
For 4 hours. We're gonna be here for 4 hours.
I'm happy to have that, I want to look at it bigger.
I like it.
I'm liking him reading it.
Oh, okay.
Because that falls right into our state. Read our mission statement, it falls right into our state. We're done.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to try to get us, when we all get out here assembled, I kind of want us to try to assemble to some degree around this blue, what I call sticky wall. Well, fall ahead of the people over here, that board.
This must be an unofficial break.
Because I said they got one.
Hot chocolate.
I didn't know you were recording it.
You're telling me show up with that.
I know, what a big gazoo.
Good, how are you? Oh, pretty good, yes.
Jason, thank you for picking
How are
us
you?
the winner.
Thanks for getting the picture.
Actually, what he did, we worked on it. He had
My-
a business card in his sleeve.
My unsafe practice up there.
Photos or so. Yeah, I didn't put you on the.
You don't get an
wrong
action
chair.
shot at city council meetings, right?
That's right.
You guys should
Go to
have
the microphone.
more, we're gonna buy it.
Yeah.
Up there, you know, posting that video, coming down. Oh, man.
Oh, really?
I almost put it on the YouTube.
You know.
You should have done nine.
Yeah, you put a tweet
Yeah, you should have one more.
I saw it, it was actually
Well, that would be pretty easy to do.
as I was coming in. I
But nobody said, get that city manager hired, is that the problem?
They said they got
Oh, I'm sure.
There's nothing you can ask.
We did.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming for
I got questions in there.
halfway break.
I made sure that the Chamber of Commerce bought us.
Which bar?
Well,
That really had pizza.
What's that?
That really had pizza. Oh.
They what?
Cookies.
Oh,
Pizza would get better.
well, I think, depending on how this next segment goes, we might, I might be able to see it.
I was so down.
I mean, you'll have to just be honest about it.
you know, that's the thing.
That would be a good goal.
John, is there a policy around that?
You know, our 52. Cats. Maybe 25. I'm pretty sure here, first you can measure
And council.
around there. We're in the
Well, my opinion is, it's gonna take more than.
West side intercept.
Felt like there's
Water to be every town.
idea what you want to do, and then you go. But you got your numbers.
Kids see it as improving the city's infrastructure.
Yeah, he shuts down some. I try not to come in at all.
Go down there and city hall.
Can you change
One or two. Hear a pin drop.
Thank you, sir. But what's cool is you start thinking about that. You know, I found myself thinking about the boss that was suggesting.
Yes, we're only, some already
We were just talking about that ourselves, we did the same thing, yeah. That was kind of tricky, yeah.
The list, my list was way bigger, and also had 2 or 3 things that I'd like to maybe hash around. But I don't necessarily want the list is.
Right.
But I think we need more opportunities.
I think we will, I think it's great for that stuff up.
But yeah, one just today.
I was doing work about it, I was thinking, people home in pajamas watching the YouTube version.
Oh, no, thank goodness. No, you know what? The one we attempted to sleep
Did it help?
really helped.
Good.
I'm not even on any
Oh,
big
good.
learning right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jason, yeah, everybody's just,
And
how?
it's just like, oh. Hopefully it's only a day, so it's
For
good.
you.
Yeah. Did you get it?
No, I had I got the flu shot about a month and a half ago when I went in for a checkup. And then I got a little bit of a cold because I think I caught it while I was in the doctor's office, because that next week I got a cold. But it wasn't anything like what everybody else was.
The skin hurting.
Yeah. Does not sound fun.
All right, gang, let's try to assemble on this end of the chambers here. So, are you allowed to move from the spot where your name is?
Yeah.
Oh, that's illegal.
Is that legal? So come on down this end. We want to go look at this right here, okay? So, come on down here.
I'm in a sweet spot, right here.
Unless you can see.
I can see it here.
Oh, okay, if you can see, I'm trying to achieve something that doesn't, I got a goal that doesn't need to be met. I'm executing an action plan that's a bridge to nowhere. Okay, so here's what happens next. Thanks, good work. So, one of you is going to be so Jason, because you've got it in front of you, you're going to be responsible, and so are you. So, here, what we're going to do next is the reason why I had you write it pretty big. We're going to have you come up in a minute, kind of not one person all at once, but we'll just kind of have some filters that we're going to look at it through. And basically, once you come up, stick yours on a sticky wall. Now, this is a very sophisticated piece of equipment.
Yes, absolutely, high tech.
This will hold a piece of paper right there. You can stick it right on there. You won't break anything. It can come and go, it can be removed, it can be torn up, thrown away, all that kind of stuff. So, but what it does is allows, for the purposes of what we're about to do next, I'll kind of use it in front of everybody so everybody can see it. You don't have to remember what they said, So the rules of engagement here are, if once they're all up, if we have a question of what we meant by it, it's really to go back to the authors to help clarify for us. And so at this point, we really want to get clarification of what we're saying. We don't really want to get yet into any real kind of deep conversation about its value. We just want to understand stuff, okay? Just like you did in your small groups. Have you had an opportunity to sit like that yet, probably as a new council, and actually have a deep conversation about what's important to you yet? So you'll find that when this is all done, I don't want to say regardless of what we come up, because the goals themselves are going to be important, but having that time to actually, let it out. What do you think? What's important to you? It's an important step. And I got to talk to one of those groups here. We recognize that the way you're showing it to me, this always happens. We already have some carryover goals from the previous council, right? And some of you are still here. They were on the older council, so we know that those exist. And sometimes that creates a little bit of a dissonance in somebody's brain. Well, how can I be making new goals? I got these old goals. But what this is going to do is help this group. Because now you are in council. It's going to help you understand what your collective sense of what's important and what's a priority is. And then you'll figure out a way to integrate that into important goals that already exist. But I think it's important for you guys to kind of be able to figure out what does this council fix for. Okay, so what I want to do is, we'll start with Jason, you're the closest. Bring up the one that you think was in your group and that was probably the easiest for you to kind of identify.
As a group?
Yeah. Whichever one you think.
I'm going to spread them off.
Yeah, give him up front. And then Barry, when he's done, I'm going to have you do the same thing. Pretty soon we'll be doing this pretty quick, so you might want to come up here and sit because you'll be coming out of it. So, easiest one. And then kind of read it to us so we can.
We said build citizen trust and confidence. That was our.
Yes. Okay, just stick it up there any place. It doesn't matter where it is. Okay, Barry?
Somewhat parallel to that was, we said to have improved communication and openness.
Okay.
Staff and citizens.
Jason, why don't you just dig into the one that you think personally is the most significant?
Problem there. Public safety staff.
Barry, same thing.
Fulfill police and jail staff.
If you remember, Jason, what was the very last one that you guys came up with?
The last one was, you want it up there?
Yeah.
This is the last thing that we think is important.
Yeah,
Emphasis on livability.
last one you came up
I
with.
think the last thing we wrote down was thing we ought to do first, and that's hire a new city manager.
Okay. That was the last thing you wrote down?
I think it's the last thing.
Yeah, interesting. So it doesn't necessarily mean the last thing you wrote is the last, maybe the least important, did it?
Yeah.
Anyone you want, Jason, at this point in time.
You ready, Audrey?
Picture, smile.
Media.
Come on, Val, let's get over it.
Yeah, you can put that on your Facebook.
So, go ahead, Rick.
Media relations.
Or you have
We
to
wrote
smile
down to
to be very-
consider the possibility of developing a parks and recreation district.
Okay.
I like this.
So at this point, if you got clarifying questions about what they're put up here, and now's a good time, because I've got one. I mean, I'd say, media relations, what about it?
I think past history has not been kind between maybe local media and our council slash staff. I think we see that we can do a better job of communicating between the two parties, and it goes both ways, but we do a better job communicating between the two parties to have the common goal we want, which is the public getting enough of the right information that's legal to disperse.
Sure. So like improved media relations is probably.
Smart word.
Come on.
Improve, really.
Yeah.
Anything, what up? Next one, whatever you got next.
Employee satisfaction, specifically in the means of, or with the method of an annual survey evaluating.
Okay. Eric?
Downtown revitalization.
Ah.
Art show.
Improving customer satisfaction.
Improved emergency preparedness.
Recruit industry, retail, and commercial business.
And somewhat parallel to that, we said smart economic development, meaning that not all economic development is desirable, and some is more desirable than others.
Okay.
And then this one was kind of more regular council and department manager positions.
And our last one was, we wrote down determining public safety level, meaning what level of public safety is desirable. Is more always better?
Determining public safety levels.
How safe do we really want our community to be? How much safety are we willing to pay for?
Yeah.
How much safety are we willing to, or how much privacy are we willing to sacrifice for more safety? Those kinds of questions.
Yeah, it's like we used to have this idea that, I'd say to my friends, do you go to any cost to protect your children? The answer always is, of course. Of course. And so I say, do you drive a Mercedes Benz? Most of them. I don't know about you, but my friends drive Mercedes. The point was that, if you go to auto safety ratings, the safest vehicle on the road, at least at the time, I don't know if this is true, but I think it is a Mercedes Benz. So if you're not, traveling on the highways with the children in Mercedes Benz, then you are not protecting your children.
Tell my wife that.
Yeah, so it's obviously that's not an accusation on any of this, it's just it's a statement.
It's a fair question that needs to be
Cost
talked
to
about.
everything.
Say, just put it on the table, let's talk about it.
Yeah, it's a cost to everything.
Because probably more is not always better.
Any clarifying questions about those?
Jason, that top right one was rebuild.
Recruit, industry,
retail, and
Okay.
commercial business.
So if we want to start looking for some common themes or a common intent, we want to kind of cluster some of these into something similar. Even though they don't say the exact words, does anything start to stick out to you?
Sure.
Communications.
Yeah, there is.
So if we said communications, what's under communication?
Media law.
Media, anything media.
Media. Whoop. So this little picture kind of creates a little. There's communication.
Well, we increased council work sessions would be a form of communication.
This one right here, this work session, please.
Yeah.
Is there another one that says that? Anything else about the clusters under that concept?
But the employee satisfaction.
The other communications, one of the thoughts I had too was that it would be employee communications also, not just media public.
Say that again, Paul?
Sorry. On the communication side, when we were discussing it, we were talking about at 3 areas, which was the public, employees, and the media.
Okay.
But we were just trying to do it your word limit.
Yeah, okay. Hang on there.
Trying to shove more onto one page that was really there.
Right.
You missed employee satisfaction.
I know, I keep looking for it, I'm not seeing it. I knew there was something I was looking for. Okay, is there any other, is there anything else start to cluster under a common intent when you think about the intent?
Public safety,
Okay.
police services, whatever. Police there.
Build citizen trust and confidence.
A lot of economic development, a couple of those there.
There's the
Yeah.
2 on the right.
People think livability is an economic development thing. Something that lives on its own. Is this part of an economic development?
Yes.
Yeah.
The livability in the parks and recreation might be a semi-category of their own.
Okay. And there's no right, wrong, this is part of the process, we just kind of, we're talking it through. So John must have gotten somebody's ear.
Heard me bragging.
The citizen trust and confidence could almost be over there with communication.
I'll put it there for now.
We talked about city manager as well. We just felt that's something in the pipeline already,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
We kind of did too, but we
Yeah.
just felt it was so important, that's why we did it.
Yeah.
That was why it was our last one. It
Yeah, I
wasn't
get
like,
that,
it was
yeah.
last thought, it was just.
We almost did it because it would have been 8.
Is that what you're saying that they did?
It's amazing how they kind of come together.
Yeah, so here's kind of what plays out every time. You guys forwarded these ideas, right? So we have to assume that because you forwarded these, that categorically, this is what's important to you right now, today, right?
Yeah.
And we could name these categories if we want. And so let's do it just for the heck of it. If we wanted to name the category, sometimes I like if it was all about personnel, you know, I like think like a 3-word, you know, like hire, you know, qualified people, or you know, think of a 3-word title that kind of gives it an action, an adjective, you know, and then the noun, so we kind of capture it.
Communication and relationships.
You can almost also call that whole left-hand column just perceived value.
Okay. All right.
Perceived what?
Perceived value.
And like what Wayne said, and then with better in front of
Yeah. So better
Communication and relationships.
communication and relationships.
Yeah.
And again, I'm gonna have Wendy, you're such a good.
See, it's good.
See, told you.
I'm not understanding how you're communicating.
Oh, you're not. Okay. What we want to write on there is
Better
so
communication.
better sometimes though is like, well, better than what? You know?
Improved.
So is it just
Improved.
good?
Improved.
Is it
Improved.
clear? Is it, somebody said something.
it.
Improved.
Improved.
Improved?
Yeah.
Or perceived, that was my point.
Okay, you want to say?
I like that word.
Yeah.
But is it supposed to be
But it's-
an adjective, or was it a verb?
Ideally, it's a, you know, verb, adjective, and a noun, you know.
Does Kaizen count as continuous improvement?
I'll put this over here in case you guys are starting.
I was gonna say,
This guy's in count.
they're
Yeah.
changing their minds.
Continuous quality improvement. But, you know, trying to be focused on, what is really the intent? I think what Wayne said is that, I know there's a couple other ways to say it, but it is improved, what did we say?
Communication?
Communication and relationships.
Okay, improved communication and relationships. And relationships meaning, Paul, this is kind of, you guys said, kind of all stakeholders, right? Not just some.
And Barry's word he likes to perceive also encompasses all thoughts.
Well, I think what Barry's going to get to is that notion that perception is reality, right?
Yeah, it is.
But for now, if we can live with it, consensus is the notion that can you live with it? You know, we don't have to. Well, whoops, my magic board is. Not quite as magic as
Just cheap paper.
well, that's because we didn't get stressed.
She sprayed it.
So what's this here? Public safety staffing, fulfill police and jail staffing, improved emergency preparedness, determine public safety levels. At least 3 of those public safety levels often comes back to personnel, doesn't it? Or is it, do you think it's something different?
I think it's something very different.
Oh, you are, okay.
The question that we talked about was, you know, we talk about, you know, fully staffing the police department. The question we're suggesting we ask is, at what level does this community need a police department? Clearly,
Then you
somebody-
decide what staff.
Yeah, and then staff to that need, as opposed to just, oh, we need more, let's get more. You know, not suggesting we have too much, we're not making that determination at all. We're just saying, let's ask the question, what's the appropriate level that, as a community, we want to achieve? And police is certainly one of those things, with the other ones as well. But to have a question, what is the level of public safety that, you know, where do we want to be?
There's measurable determinants for that, though. We have comps, we have,
Yeah, and those are used in the past.
yeah, so.
So we got to our current staff.
Well, do we, you know, my question, you probably a little broader than that, and it's simply, the fact that everybody else does it, is that what we want to do? Do we just follow the Joneses? Or do we have a reason for why we want to do that? That's my question.
I do, and they're swamped. I mean, that's my reason. is that-
And the council at the time did have a basis.
I'm just asking a question for me. I'm the guy sitting here today, and I don't know the answer, so that's why I'm asking a question.
Well, to some degree with it, it's good dialogue, because we start to inform each other too, and that's part of it. So if we're gonna name that, if those 4 things fit together, what is the underlying intent?
To me, it is what you said. It is increasing staffing. And to what level, I could tell you.
Appropriate
I'm-
staffing levels.
Yeah, at an appropriate level.
Yeah.
I'm not the person.
Determining appropriate staffing.
Bingo. Determining and fulfilling
Okay,
appropriate staffing.
determine and
The
fulfill.
non-preparedness doesn't fall in that category if that's.
That's true, it does
personnel.
not.
Okay, so we
Yeah.
pull this one out of there, now
Yeah.
this one starts to make
A little bit of a separate thing.
Yeah.
it feels right.
Livability, that kind of livability.
We'll put it.
Yeah, that actually would be a little bit.
You always, in this process, you always have a few outliers.
Yeah.
That we never quite know what to do with exactly. But we know it's important to us because we said it.
Yeah.
So what did we come up with there?
Did you just move the wrong one?
I'm not
Did I?
sure.
I thought you said.
No, he was right.
No, that's right.
Are we, did you want determine and fulfill police staffing or just staffing across the board?
Police, public safety, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
Is public
Just wanna
safety, when we
make
say
sure.
public safety, are we referring specifically to police?
Yeah, we are here.
This organization. Let us have some discussion about that staffing. I think it applies across all.
Because of that was what I understood from Barry is it's not that it's not important at police, but to compare it to, you know, your budget and across the board, I think is what I
Well,
heard
we
you
had a
saying.
couple, I had a couple things on my personal list that we didn't include on our papers, but, and then the reason was they're a little bit higher level. They're probably more along the line of what Wyatt would talk about, but, I could talk for quite a while, I don't want to take time. But I have a fairly strong burden that we take a look at some pretty broad level of concepts, before we just jump right down to this is where we're going. So,
One of the thoughts we had is, and it was gonna be maybe the last one instead of hiring city manager, that we talked about, was similar to what the school district did, kind of like a vision plan, which again is similar to what Wyatt has been talking about too, where we do look at everything and maybe something where we plan next year to do that, because it's a big project, but getting a lot of input from a lot of people and actually finding out what is important, like, you know, how much police staffing does the community expect? not just what do the numbers say, but what do people expect for safety and things like that. So that's where that would come in. It's just like with school. You know, with the school, what do you expect your child, what kind of protection do you expect for your child to have in school? What kind of education do you expect? And let the community at least express what their feeling is. I'm not saying that that's going to change anything, but it's important to see what the community feels and what their perception is. Because then if the perception is that they want more staffing in the police department that's necessary, then maybe that's where then there needs to be some public relations from the city explaining, well, this is why we do it, and our crime rate is down because of it.
Well, they'd have to know how much was there first to know they wanted more. But I mean, I don't think, I think maybe you're being, my brain's a little fever still. I think you're being a little bit positive side, thinking that you're aware of what our current levels are at any level.
I don't think the public would know.
Yeah, they would, and not that they should either.
Well, it's the perception, though. That's I think what this is getting at. Was the perception of what people think?
What they'll say is, well, what's enough? When I call, they come.
Yeah.
Well, you know, when we talk about these kind of levels, you know, it's really easy for us to get to the point. I mean, the nature of bureaucracy is the bureaucrats know what the underlings need, and to a great degree, there's some truth to that. I want to, you know, diminish the concept of a professional. But at the same time, the role of a public counsel, this body, separate from the professionals, is to ask some of those stupid questions. And that's what I'm proposing we do as a group, because it's not our job to provide public safety, it's the police department. All right? But it's our job to say, how much police department do we want? And that conversation is one that I think in the next 2 years we need to have in a significant way. I don't have an agenda about where we come out with that. My comment was that as a goal, that's a conversation that we need to develop so we understand what our cultural desire is. That's my comment.
Where we have some history in that, I mean, that concept of doing that by asking the administrative team at the police department, what levels do we need to be at to be providing?
Well, see, my comment's not to ask the police department, because my assumption is they don't know. No, they know based on what police departments traditionally do. My question is to step back and almost go to ground zero and say, why would a community of people want a police department in the first place? What would we want a police department to do for us? Not to go ask, well, the police department's been doing this for 100 years. Well, this is what the police department do. We can show you the numbers of what the other community does. Forget what the Joneses do. What do we want to do and why? To kind of reinvent that wheel a little bit and say, okay, now you professionals, here's what we want you to do.
Yeah, but they also have professional standards that they
And
have.
I'm not ignoring those, but I'm saying I don't want to rely on
Just because
what
the
they want.
community says, well, we want you to do this, they have national.
They work for us. And I think it's fair to say that it's our job to consider professional standards, not theirs.
True, but if you tell me you're a firefighter, you work for me, I want you to go fight a fire with just a coat, not pants, I'm gonna say no, because we have.
That's not what I'm suggesting.
But, I mean, along that line, for instance, you don't respond to a domestic with one officer, routinely, you have 2 to 3, but based on, so there's a lot of things that the public doesn't know. They just, to them, it's the police services. It's what the police do, and what they don't know is that how thin we run on a regular basis.
I also think that what they don't know is how much of this is just traditional bureaucracy. And I don't know the answer either. I'm not sure how much of it is, how much of it isn't. I do know from organizations I've worked with in the past 3 years that there's a great deal of assumption that's just the way we do it. It's never challenged. And a lot of it's good and based on good reasons. And some of it has just developed over time and
So let me jump into this, because what I like what we've said here is, because right now what you're trying to do is something that's going to have to happen very quickly. You're trying to determine, your goal is about determining the answers to the.
And that's what I say, my goal for the next 2 years was to work on that determination.
Yeah.
That's my objective. It's not, I don't have an agenda where we're going to go with it. But,
So for now, I mean, I like what you said, because determine is just what you're, like, that's the focus, because before you staff, you gotta determine. Now, how you're gonna do that is gonna be another question, another question. So let's see, I thought this was interesting. This becomes about public safety staffing. If you add that, it becomes a more general direction, which is staffing of the entire city staffing, you know? But it looks like this, though, is something that's very, obviously, it's specific. Let's see, so do we have anything else that kind of clusters together real
So
neatly?
what did we just give Linda a name of that particular category?
That we determine and fulfill police staffing? Change it, we don't like it. Did I take it away from you too soon?
So, driving me crazy.
Oh. Okay, so let's leave that behind, because we don't want to get into trying to, get into solving it yet. We just want to identify what's important. So is this one, does this have a name to it?
Well, it's economic
Economic
development.
You know, I would probably add a word that's, there was another topic that I raised, we talked about a little bit, that's not up here at all. And I don't want to just drag in and out of the paper at the moment, but I would probably say, as a summary, economic development and infrastructure. Probably is the wrong way of saying it, I would cover my thoughts.
I guess what is the action?
Yeah, so as I said, what's the action and what's the qualifier?
Well, in my mind, it's similar to the public safety one, is to determine the measures on which we want to accomplish those things. What economic development, it's smart economic, what it is, what do we want? When we recruit people, which recruits do we want, which do we not want, and why?
So then I think it requires us to drill down as to what those things are that we want to.
What benefits are they going to provide to us? What benefits are we going to provide to them?
Yeah.
Carter talked about refocusing at one point on economic development. Maybe what we were doing 5, 6, 7 years ago, yes, we were planning the future change in 2008. Maybe we need to refocus as now we begin to creep up again. Time to refocus and get ahead of the game again, as we did 5, 6, 7, 8, however many years ago.
I mean, we could, let's say that a major pig farmer wanted to locate in Lebanon. Do we want them? Great jobs, good money, money, all that kind of stuff. But do we want big farm here? Big one? Maybe not. Do you want a NASCAR track in your backyard? We're kind of unhappy with the little dirt track we have. Do you want a NASCAR track?
Yes.
Or a prison, or some of these things that
Yeah,
are
I mean,
very
the
obvious.
question is, there are things we probably really do want that would truly be a benefit to existing residents. But again, it's kind of like some other things, is that more is not necessarily better. What is better for us? And it's a conversation we need to really have and flesh it out.
So what is it?
And what I hear that group of papers suggesting is that we need to establish some directions in the area of economic development. That says, what is it we want, how are we going to go get it?
These things tell us that economic development is important for school.
Yeah,
What we're trying to determine right now is,
how do we say so?
what is it about economic development?
One of the things that.
What is the underlying issue here?
Well, the reason you want economic development generally, at least from my perspective, is that when you bring in employers, existing folks get better jobs, incomes go up, standards of living go up, et cetera. It's a better way to live because there's this activity here. If we bring in economic development and all we do is increase the cost of track, let's say it's a NASCAR track, and let's say that, to hypothesize that all they do is have a big event here a few weekends of the year, and they provide all their own concessions on site, and there's really no restaurant activity that develops or hotel activity that develops from it. And so the local residents, all they do is put up with the traffic and the noise and don't get any benefit out of it. It's economic development, and it's a lot of it, but we don't really care. In fact, it's doing us harm more than good. That probably wouldn't be that way.
Yeah,
But I'm just saying,
you're
but we need to ask ourselves when opportunities present themselves, is are our current residents truly going to benefit from this? Or is it just going to add
So what's the council's goal?
Accelerating responsible economic development.
That'd be good. I can do that.
accelerating, is that the word you
That's a
want?
good one, establish economic development
Accelerate or just.
vision or plan or
No, we have a plan,
plan, but it would be more of a, maybe direction,
or amending, or reviewing, or.
maybe, yeah, it might be.
Part of ours that we had was that we wanted the concept that it's not dormant, or that we need to keep an eye on it, because what tends to not get promoted just falls by the wayside. So stimulate, develop, those kind of words are what we say.
You know, I think that we had some discussion in our group about the focus in a different geographic location. Maybe we need to look at rezoning in order to establish some different kinds of economic development.
Maybe what we could say would just simply to be, for our purposes today, is to identify desirable economic development. Would that be a fair way of saying it?
Yeah,
For now, that's good enough.
and we can drill down into that later.
Yeah, there's a lot that can be talked about there.
Yeah. And then, that would work for me if I sit around the table. It's not, not eloquent, but for now it's fine, because what people have done is they've identified from their own perspective, things that they think would be the target place to look at the answer to that, right? Downtown, industry, retail, and commercial, and whatever smart economic development. We know whoever wrote that, we know what they mean, they said that. It's kind of what we've discussed here.
That might
We gotta
be-
understand what we're doing and how to fit into a plan. You know, somebody here used that example of building a house, one room at a time.
Desirable economic development.
That probably includes the whole urban growth
We need more
project.
blue paper.
A lot of issues that go with that.
Oh, you ran out of pictures.
I got it.
What do you
I'm
got,
gonna
Wendy?
need more, I'm gonna need more blue paper.
So the assumption is, whether we look at it and go, really, that's what we think is important? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what you think is important.
It's just that easy.
Remember, we talked in the first things when we had that discussion up front, what I've seen, it's not about, goals are typically pretty easy to kind of identify, maybe wordsmith them for quite a while, and you may wordsmith it after, more today or after today. It's hooking the action plans, you know, because each one of those goals can have more than one action plan attached to it, right? Now, is that a strategic direction, identify desirable economic development, or is it a goal?
I think could be both, but more so direction.
Kind of borderline. It's a little bit more of a direction than it is, because what do you guys think?
Well, I think the key word there is desirable, because we haven't decided for ourselves what is desirable. We have some differences of opinion about that. That conversation probably needs to be had at some level.
Yep.
I mean, Wayne wants NASCAR, and the rest of us aren't so sure.
Minor league baseball.
What about improved community and relationships? Is that, in that conversation we had about strategic directions versus strategic goals, how do you see that?
I think that one's both. It's a direction and a goal.
Well, you could label them all that way, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, what I like about them all is the fact that there's a real focus and a need to drill down into the meat of the tidings.
Yeah.
Out of that comes a lot of very positive result.
Do we have a title for that third column?
Parks and Rec District, emphasis on livability, improved emergency preparedness.
Yeah, we don't have a title on that one.
No title there yet.
Well, they're not really a column.
Yeah, they might not be really associated with each other.
Not everything has to fit.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
they're all in some form dependent on the services provided by the community. And put a broad title over it, they're all some form of service. We've got public safety all by itself as a service, but other services are kind of grouped under that column.
Yeah.
And there's probably more we can say about that. I mean, one thing we talked about in our group that we don't have on the board is a fair amount about utilities as a category of services. We put in that column as well. You know, the whole conversation, you know, I'm surprised that we don't have the water treatment plant on there because that's such a hot topic. You know, but that comes under the category of public services that we really know what's facing out.
That's kind of where we put it in terms of health and safety.
Yeah. Again, drill it down.
Is
A lot of
livability
drill it
category?
down.
I mean, it all kind of are aspects of livability.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I say it's all in that
It's all
column there.
livability. I mean,
I guess everything up there.
Everything is, yeah.
Yeah, that could go on under each column.
Yeah, often, you'll hear people talk about livability as an aspect of your economic development effort.
Day to day.
The quality of life, is important. It's important for more than just economic development, but when economic development professionals think about their assets, they want quality.
You know, when I look at Wyatt's concept and his input he's had in terms of all these things cause us as leaders and citizens to be in a friendly, happy environment. In
Right.
terms of livability.
So we're just manipulating the ideas right now, we're just digging into them a little bit. Sometimes clustering them together help us kind of see a common kind of intent of what we're saying. So as you look at whether it's a blue card or a yellow card, is there something up there that strikes us as, because now we want to kind of prioritize this a little bit, right? Some of them they're all could be written, the language in each one of those can be changed to be a goal of some kind. Good.
Well, generally, I mean, from where I'm sitting over here, what you see up there is you see it describe, you know, why a city government exists. If the city government exists to provide services of various types, and as an organization, it has to interface with the public. And so what you have is you have some columns that describe various services, and that far left column over there is the interface.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good observation.
Well, and I had some goals, or things that I'd like to address, but really what I'd like to address is a broader spectrum of conversation, which is one of the reasons I like the more council interaction with workshops, because a lot of what Barry's referring to is kind of stepping back and looking at a lot of broader pictures. You know, like I could say I don't like half-street improvements. John knows this. And I'd like to know how the policies got to where they are and what we can do to change those policies. That would come about with those discussions that hopefully we'll have more opportunities. And then after those, I could add more things to this list, because I'd have a better understanding of why we're here, like you said. Why are we, I don't want to accept yesterday just because it's here. And then a better chance to kind of take a pulse of the rest of the council, and then I'm sure that synergy could create 3 times that.
Yeah. And typically, that's what happens once you decide. Let's say, because probably the improved communication and relationships, probably, does that strike as being is kind of a goal?
It's kind of
A goal that's identifiable and meaningful to you? Because typically what happens is you go action planning around that, you kind of start with the yellow cards underneath it, to kind of seed your thinking, and then you kind of just go from there about, okay, now what, if this is really a goal of ours, what about, you know, what do we really want to focus our energy on developing as far as that? So does that feel good as a goal that you set up today? Improved communication and relationship?
Yeah.
Just determining and fulfilling police staffing, does that feel like one that's? What about that third one? Identify desirable economic development. Does that resonate with us at all?
I don't think we're identifying. I think a different word.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know it's not my city, but there's something about it doesn't quite.
I like stimulate or promote more, because obviously through that, we would have to identify what it is we want to see. But I'm really a firm believer that what I want to see in it is not just identifying or looking at it, but some kind of action plan that pushes it.
We want our words here to inform that action. Right now, it's pretty, now John pointed out that we have an economic development plan, right?
So it'd be more like maybe examine or re-examine.
Or updating, or refocusing, or.
Here, try.
You know,
I mean, better than, yeah, the identifier.
update the economic development plan.
Yeah.
Updating.
I think one of the things that, in my own thinking, as I think about it, is probably a problem in my own place, and that is simply, I'm probably not aware of all things on the economic development plan. So a little ignorance on my part. For myself, the key word in that paper right now is the desirable word.
Yeah.
I'm not hung up on some of the rest of it. But to me, that would be the piece that I want to make sure our plans encompass with, we know what's desirable for us.
Yeah.
I like the desirable part of that too.
That's the key piece for me.
What fits the.
Yeah.
So, if we update, does that word need to be in, if we're gonna have a goal of update the economic development plan, does the word desirable have to be in the actual goal?
Well, again, my position is, I don't know what the economic development plan says, it may just be fine.
Well,
No, I don't think it has to be in here.
what's that?
I don't think it has to be in here. We're gonna come to that conclusion through the effort.
Yeah.
Well, to
yeah.
me, I'm not sure we will, that's not clear to me. I think that it's like so many other things that unless we ask what I would call, again, dumb questions, is it really desirable? I think we see an opportunity and we just, yeah, that's a good thing, big development coming to town, great, this is a great thing.
Yeah.
Is it really great? On what basis do we say so? I think we ought to, have that conversation and say, what are the things we look at to decide if this is worth looking at or not? When the VA decides they want to build a facility in our town, everybody assumes that's a good deal. And maybe it is, I think it probably is, but, do we know?
Yeah, you want to feel like you have some way of measuring that, don't you?
Yeah, I'd like to say,
Well, how do I know this is a good idea?
Why is this such a good idea? Is it just, we bring all our enthusiasm to it and that makes it a good idea? I don't know.
We know it because of the first column over there has so much input.
Yeah.
Because we got some.
We're gonna go with update the economic development plan for now, unless, does anybody disagree?
But I thought we wanted desirable.
Very nice hand.
We'll make sure Barry is
He wants to
close.
set that- he
We'll
wants
put Barry in
desirable.
charge of the goal.
Yes, very good.
And
Well,
he'll get this desirability
Question
concept
mark on
figured out.
desirable.
So here's the assumption going through the, and it's always, it's true, it's really kind of undeniable, right? That's what you guys think is important. Today, I know you got other goals. I would say, from this session, there's 3, I don't know if those are new goals for you. How do you feel about those?
Yeah, I think there are 3 broad basic categories.
Now, what if we took those to staff and said, okay, we want to update a desirable economic development plan? You stuck desirable in there, didn't you?
I was listening to Jason and Barry and liked the words
Good
they
job.
put it in.
Well done.
So here's what I think I've seen in the past. I mean, you guys, this is complex work around the city. I ran to a community college. We got 25,000 people coming in and taking class. We got 1,000 employees. We got budget issues, everywhere we turn. We have many same things. And our goals are, they're complex. And typically what works for me when I've got staff of people working on complex things, what I ask them to do, and I bet you do too, is, get hired because you're a smart city manager. Put together a plan, attach a budget to it, and bring it back to me. Right? I mean, something like that, but does it feel, because in a way, if that feels good to you,
So we're ready for the action.
you've done at least that part already. you established what your goals are. And I know those dovetail with other stuff that's already on the table. We left most of that out of the conversation today, right? When we were putting things together, because you knew there's already things on, but Wayne was showing me that, this stuff. Are these new? Compared to?
Communications is fairly new.
There's two of the videos are new.
So who is going to, I mean, let's just think this through. Like, okay, improve communication and relationships. That's a goal.
That's a culture change.
Yeah.
Then you start laying out some objectives underneath that. Right? So what would we do? Who's going to be responsible for that?
Every single person.
Shelley?
Yeah.
Well, if we're gonna improve it, how bad is it?
Yeah. Okay. So a lot of people, how do they answer that question?
But one of the things that
They survey the community.
And one of the things that we've started is that we've set up a committee in the last council meeting to go forward with communication policy so that we can actually hash that out for all our communications. And I think that that's like our action plan at this point.
Right.
Start. But there's obviously a lot more pieces to that, but I think that's the start of this to figure out where we need to go, what we need to do.
One of the things I experienced dealing with the public generally, ran this on the planning commission for years, and that is that people come to a public body such as this, and they're full of angst over some issue, and they just are simply ignorant of the process. And a lot of their angst goes away when they begin to understand the process. And the communication is not so much improving what we do as much as communicating and educating. I'd probably say educating is probably a bigger thing as communicating. One of my favorite stories is my next door neighbor a few years back when we had the situation here where they had a public vote on whether or not to require a vote on annexations. And my next door neighbor, picked up the driver, come one day and said, "What do you think of this thing?" I said, "What do you think?" Obviously, it's a burden to you. He said, "Well, I think we ought to have a say in what goes on in this town." He was pro it. He said, "So what do you think?" He said, "You're on the planning commission." He said, "Well," I said, "I think it ought to be fair to everybody, whatever we do. And when Joe has a piece of property and when Sam has a piece of property, they both want to annex, the rules ought to apply to both of them. It shouldn't just be able to say, well, I like Joe, we'll annex him, or we don't like Sam, I can annex him." So I don't think it ought to be a popularity contest. I said, so I would suggest maybe we get a community, a group of citizens that we elect to decide what the rules are going to be so it's fair to both, both Sam. He said, well, that's probably a good idea. And I said, then once the rules are established, maybe we ought to get a second committee, maybe volunteers this time. And whenever Joe or Sam asked for annexation, the second committee would look at the rules that are already established that we collectively decided on and decide if they fit the rules or not and then decide if they can annex or not. He said, "Man, that's great. He said, why don't you propose that?" I said, "Well, the first committee we have is called City Council. They write the rules, and you elect them." I said, "The second committee of volunteers is called the Planning Commission. They review the rules." I said, "That's the way it works now.
Yeah.
Why would you change it?"
Exactly. Well done.
And he said, "I'm voting against this thing." And it's that kind of an education. Everybody comes into a group like this, the community's always complaining, bad communications, this, that, and the other, we don't know what's going on. Usually I find it's because they don't pay attention to what we try to tell them. And so I don't think it's because as a city we do a bad job necessarily, as much as the public doesn't get it.
There's always a perception.
And so under that, I think somehow we need to capture that part of it and not say that we have to change our procedures as much as maybe we need to be aware that we have to explain better.
So as I'm sitting here thinking, I'm hearing it be, it's almost like develop a public relations strategy.
Yeah,
That's where
yeah.
communications.
Because I don't think as a city that we do a bad job with our communications necessarily.
Yeah.
There are little things we've got. I think
Yeah, because improved kind of implies that we're
doing a bad job.
But is it about public relations?
It's about, we work for these folks. They ought to understand what we're doing. And I think that's what I hear some folks saying, is that the public needs to know, but, you can't make them listen. But sometimes the way we behave around this table, the way we interact with folks, by being sensitive to the fact that they don't get it, they don't do this every day, and explain over and over again, sometimes we think it's a little nauseating. But I have found with the planning commission that over-explaining goes a long way to smooth the waters. And it's just a matter of perception of what they understand, as opposed to changing what we do. And if we need to make a change, of course, change it. But I don't see that we have to just change because somebody's complaining, we just need to make sure everybody gets it.
But that is a change.
Yeah, sure, that's what, and I'm validating
Yeah.
the idea, I'm just trying to say where I see the need.
It seems like a simple goal that's broad, has all of these tentacles. All these places you see where we could do something different. You know, not that we're not doing well, we're different sometimes. Well, this is kind of this is as far as I was prepared to take it today. Just do some goals. So at this point in time, I guess it's kind of now, what do you want to do next? And did we achieve what we set out to achieve?
I guess my question is, did you expect it to only be 3 goals?
I didn't have enough.
What did we expect for goals in terms of numbers?
Especially when we were in our groups, I thought there was gonna be a ton up there, but then when we break them up into categories, you realize that they're all pretty similar. I'm a little surprised, I thought there was gonna be more categories.
So it is interesting, you know, because when you stop and think about why cities exist in the first place, you know, the basic things that we do,
Services.
basic services, streets, utilities, public safety, you know, the list, broadly speaking, is pretty limited. And so our goal is that we do what we do and do it well and cost effectively, with minimal impact services. And so with that in mind, the list should be fairly concise. You know, the particulars might get a little broader. But, you know, probably the one thing I would change is that 4th column. I'd probably get a 4th column in there that would cover more broadly the other services. But you were kind of in there somewhere. But as a list of goals, I'd probably be a little more explicit with it.
Well, that's where, our group talked about things like completing the West Side Interceptor, construction of the, but that stuff is already in the process, so we took it off of our list in particular, but not at the penalty of looking like we care about it. You know, so it's, why isn't it on your list? Well, it would be, we could get it there really quick.
And, well, at least it was my conception, or perception rather, that we're not doing away with these goals and actions that are right here.
Right. Yeah, so we're gonna build onto those actions. And that's we could probably take off the city manager, because that was, again, something we put up because we just felt it was really important. But in the spirit of this whole thing, it's really not, because it's really not actually on the goal list, it's just, it's something that we're in
It's
process.
something you're gonna do when it's
Right, it's gonna happen.
It's almost a task.
Yeah. I think it might not be a bad idea for us to have another work session where we then take these and create tasks out of them. Or action plans, I guess is what you call it.
I would recommend it.
Action items.
Paul's suggestion on that might be that before we spend a lot of time developing tasks from this, at least from where I sit, I would gain a great deal of benefit from some familiarization with the plans that are already in place. You know, we've already mentioned that line of development plan. I know it's there, but I'm not familiar with the ground it covers. And I don't want to sit here and try to reinvent a wheel that we've already thought through. You know, I think as a staff or as a council, we could probably use some real education just about, you know, what's in place already. You know, as a work session, perhaps. You know, all of the various plans that we've already had, master plans, you know, the transportation plan, the parks plan, the comprehensive plan,
Capital facility.
all sorts of plans that exist. And a work session that familiarizes us broadly with those things, I think would be a great value to us as we consider what we need to do moving forward.
We had that discussion in our group, that work sessions probably added a lot of value to reviewing what we have, and for the new members, that it brings them up to speed with dialogue and input from their perspective.
That would be helpful.
You know, I'm certainly, I'll put in whatever time it takes to, pay so great.
Are you looking for overtime?
Anyone said overtime?
So, and Mr. Mayor, the sooner we do that, I think, the better.
I agree. I'd like to get a planning session, or no, a work session, I guess we call it. We get together and come up with, well, I guess instead of looking at that for coming up with the action plan, that we would actually maybe go over the topics and discuss what's in place now. And does that consensus?
You know, I think having, John and staff there to
Can't see the bottom of the
Just
cup.
give us
Make a
that.
copy.
action plan and where we're at and where we're.
And certainly, for example, if you were going to put a team to work updating the economic development plan, you'd start by looking at what it is. Right. And typically, right, I agree, Paul. You start to research, familiarize yourself with what it currently is. Start envisioning what it's.
Well, I just know, because I was involved with the comp plan update several years ago, and I know that there's a huge amount of really quality thought that went into
Yeah,
that.
right, and that's where most of our economic development plan is.
Exactly, and what I'm saying is there's a lot of that quality thought that exists that we could really benefit from just by spending some time familiarizing with it.
What would everybody say if we did that in conjunction with the city manager hiring meeting? Which is what, the March?
You want to do that, or do you want to cover that today?
It's on the page we're discussing here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't actually discuss that either. Yeah, that's true, it is.
My suspicion is that there's enough material there to
Just
raise
raise
up
up
a judgment.
Okay. Well, that
But we
meeting was,
did have
the meeting was
something planned
planned,
for March
and
8th
everybody
as
had
well.
said that, so I'm wondering if that could be,
Oh,
March 8th.
March 8th, yes.
so we could use that
I
time
see what you're saying.
for that. Is that agreeable? Wait, is that okay?
Yeah, fine.
Okay, so we'll, and will that be okay, John? Will we be able to do that, and we get staff?
Yeah, I'm not sure, obviously, we're talking a lot of ground here, potential. We're talking about comprehensive plan, transportation plans, capital facilities plans, et cetera. Obviously, you've got three things there, we can talk about those, and then, kind of give an update or overview or snapshot of those. But then if you want to go into the different plans that are associated with those, either directly or indirectly, I'm not sure how much of that prep work we can do by March 8th. I mean, I think it's important to do. I agree totally with that.
Could I ask, timeline on the goals themselves? Are we pushing this along too fast, given what else is on the plate of the city right now? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what I'm getting to, I guess. Thank you for putting in those terms. Yeah, I think based on what else is going on, probably, we could have something, and some things by March 8th. I don't think we can get all of that.
And Ken, I'm not sure I can digest it all in one session.
Yeah, I'm not sure you could either.
It would be nice to finish something.
I think maybe
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
pick one or two things for that.
We could perhaps do
Focus on that.
one or two by March 8th, yeah, that we can do. Yeah, go ahead.
While it's gonna be hard to digest it, I believe all of our plans are on our website.
Yeah,
So
they're out there.
we can be reviewing them maybe.
Right.
Good idea.
I just,
Yep.
since time is,
Yeah, we could do that if we reviewed the plans and the areas of interest that we had then we can come with questions, and then we can have staff that can answer those questions, so that they're not really burdened with preparing a ton of information.
And if the department managers committee have those questions ahead of time, then they would know what to focus on.
That would be good. And we could give kind of an overview snapshot of again, 2 or 3 of those by March 8th. I realize if you look at some of those plans, they're kind of overwhelming, and they can go on and on and on. But a lot of it is not relevant, particularly in relation to what you've got up there. Some of it's already kind of in the past, if you will, or already accomplished. So the department managers and or myself can, again, kind of boil a lot of that down. But I think it's a great idea. If you have time, to the extent you have time to at least, if not read them word for word, which would be pretty hard, but doable, at least take a quick look and see what's in there, and maybe focus on some things that you think interest you or are relevant to your discussion today.
So which 1 or 2 do we want to do on March 8th?
I think the first one is really not even an issue, because there really is no communications.
That's correct, we do not.
So that one we can just kind of throw off the side, that one we can discuss completely independently. But I guess that leaves the 3 categories, I guess, we have left. 2.5.
Well, we've got,
Got the economic development, which, that one, and then we've got the, it's like the staffing.
Police staffing.
Yeah.
What existing plans are covering these staffing issues?
I'd have to get with PD. We don't have like a citywide staffing plan. Each department kind of works on it depending on, again, the standards or the size of the operation. Like the library has their own standards, so number of books and hours of operation and population base, etc. So, and each department over the years has worked on various staffing plans, as has the PD. But what exactly they have in writing at this point, I'm not sure.
So we have an economic development plan, but we don't really have a public safety plan.
Not as an adopted citywide plan, no.
I'm just asking for clarification.
So I guess the comp plan would,
Comp plan, that actually covers more development, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it touches on public safety, but it's not nominal.
The transportation plan, kind of.
Yeah.
Are you talking about, like, we have an emergency response plan?
We have an emergency response plan.
Yeah, the emergency, public works, the, Dan
We
Grass
have that.
there.
We have that.
Yeah, but, for example, the state has their statewide goals, planning goals specifically.
Right.
And, our comp plan is a response to how we're going to accomplish those things. But, public safety is such an enormous part of our local budget. I just haven't thought, do we have that kind of a focused, here's how we're going to accomplish this objective to our town?
Well, sure, they have their policies and SOGs are probably there.
They have those for
it's a
sure.
departmental thing.
Yeah, but that's their implementation of something. My question is, do we have something analogous to a statewide planning goal, so this is why we do this, and this is their implementation of it? Yeah, what I'm saying is, I don't think we have that as an overarching, this is the driving force for all of the reasons that this is built. And I'm suggesting that would be the some level.
Well, clearly we could not get that done.
No,
Even
I'm not
close
saying
to
do that. No,
Okay.
I'm not asking you
Get
to do
started
that.
on that, John.
To me, that's what I'm saying about goal. This is a goal. I'm saying that something of that nature would be a value to aim at.
Okay, but for the 8th, we
Yeah, for
can't
the 8th,
know
no,
where we are with police staffing and.
No, I'm not asking.
Okay. No.
And I think probably on that discussion on the 8th, the livability stuff would probably be under kind of the comp plan. That area.
Okay, but yeah, there's questions in the comp plan about livability and community standards. Yeah.
So that would be our focus on the 8th.
Could do that.
Bring some education to that.
Okay.
Do we have a Xerox copy of the board?
No, what we'll do is, I'll give these to Linda, and the way to keep track of this is, we'll make a stack underneath this, because you want to actually kind of preserve all of these accomplishments that came out, because it may be something that sparks a little bit more momentum at a later time in another conversation. So we'll just stack these up for Linda, and she'll know that these were all kind of items that we sorted under here. These we sorted under here. These became outliers that we didn't, that could be standalones, or, you know, they didn't really categorize. You understand what I'm saying? I should know all this stuff.
That's archive stuff.
I have all of them listed, but I just didn't understand what we were doing with the livability because there wasn't a blue sheet over it, so.
No blue sheet, no understand.
So I didn't know if we were just.
Those became non-categorized accomplishments. I'm gonna give you these
Well,
anyway.
Floyd wanted to call it missing element.
If you take those with you, they become public records.
I know.
Initiate positive miscellaneous.
They will be stored in my council goal file.
So I'm giving you these under whether you want them or not.
Yes, I do, because the penmanship is so nice.
Does council have any other questions or comments? Good job, everybody. I think that went really well.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for your time, and thank you, Gary, very much for coming, and I know that made a long day for you, so I
Thanks.
appreciate
I
that.
hope it works out for you. I hope you end up with something that you can work forward.
If it doesn't, we'll blame you. Thanks a lot.
Linda, was there a couple of black cases that these?
Yeah, they're,
Okay, to wrap this part of the meeting up, citizen comments, we have one other opportunity, if anybody from the community would like to come up and speak.
You guys know everything I have to say.
yeah, Trey stole it.
So guys, I wanted to let you know, I'm Shelley Garrett, the Chamber Director, you know that, what a great session you had. And what I'm really happy about is that when we had our chamber board retreat, we talked about a lot of similar things, and I try to accomplish what you guys accomplished, so we work together as a partnership. And although some of them didn't, apply to chamber stuff, there's several that I'm working on at the direction of my board that I've had some wonderful success and taken a lot of action since last month. And that is the economic development, the process. We're trying to find a way to market Lebanon outside the area to get more interest in economic development. And I've found I've done some research to find ways to do it, and I'm working on that. So anything I can help you do to try to bring in industrial developers and more retail people, I want to share with you everything I've got. The other thing is the livability. I'm also working on part of the marketing of Lebanon. One of the best things we have to offer is our quality of life. So I'm working on trying to find a way to have some marketing pieces to give people to visit. They probably can hear me. So anyway, so there's things that we are working on, that you guys are working on, that I will help in any way I can. And I've given Mayor Paul a copy of our retreat minutes, which has an overview on it. But as we continue to find resolve and get the action items that I've done completed, I will keep you updated. But if I can help you at all in any of this, please let me do that, because I have a big mouth, and my expertise is marketing. And that's what I'm kind of concentrating on doing, to bring in that industrial and retail stuff, so we don't have to I want to make sure that you guys get the benefit of what we're doing, so that you don't have to duplicate it. And then I also want to just suck all the knowledge out of you guys too. John did an excellent presentation along with John Hascone at our economic development meeting, which we have once a month. It was the best economic development meeting we've ever had. Paul was there. And we learned so much, and we learned things that I've already jumped on that I can use, so it was great. So anyway, thank you very much. I just want to help as much as I can. And we'll be talking back and forth and sharing how far we go on all these retreat things that I've shared with you.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
And thanks to the chamber for the cookies. I'm not sure.
You're welcome.
Chamber cookies, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That helped keep that blood sugar up a little bit extra.
I would have gone for pizza too, but you said cookies, so.
Any other
Pizza for
Any other customer comments?
Okay.
Citizen.
Did you say?
5 minutes, go.
Wyatt King, local nuisance, and after hearing what Shelley said, I just really think that that's a good idea that the council in the city of Lebanon should jump on, because helping her come up with a marketing plan for economic development, obviously it's going to increase the economic development, that's the goal of it, but I think we'll also educate our citizens as to what our government does, and will just be a great public relations move. You know, just building a Lebanon marketing plan that lets us put our best foot forward. I had too much coffee, so I'm stuttering like no other. But I just think that is a great plan that we should really focus on and help Shelley as much as the council can to just educate and inform about what a great place Lebanon is. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Wyatt. And thank you for your effort on the document that you did too. And it wasn't that we were ignoring it. In fact, it was actually discussed as we were discussing the goals. So parts of that I think are really valid and very, very good and involved with our goal settings. Thank you. Thanks for your work. Appreciate it. And for hanging out there in the audience this whole time. Impressed.
The smartphone helped.
Yeah.
So he does a lot.
So you really were paying attention.
I'm not sure we can take it. Craig Boy's got very much of a life.
Okay. Last on the agenda, regular session, city manager recruitment process. City manager Joe.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the city council. I want to echo too, regarding Shelley, the Chamber of Commerce. They are one of many very excellent partners we've had over the years. And, I certainly look forward to continuing to work with them, and probably, I think as we review this and update our city's economic development plan, I think probably one of the things we should do is work on a marketing section of that plan that deals exactly with that partnership. So I think that's great. We'll do that. To the subject at hand, as some of you are aware, maybe everyone's aware, the former city council, I can't remember when this decision was made, I think it was like last August or September or something like that, maybe it's before that, about whether how to proceed with the recruitment process for the new city manager. And at that time, they considered hiring an outside recruitment firm and turned that down primarily because of the preliminary cost estimates, which at that time, those that we got ranged from $15,000 to $20,000. They also looked at the possibility of having our HR staff run that recruitment similar to other recruitments, department manager, et cetera, recruitments we've done in the past. And then also there was, I think, maybe it was the following council meeting, a proposal from the Council of Governments to basically be the front point for the recruiting effort. That is, they would do the advertising, people would submit their applications, resumes, the COG would do an initial scoring of those applications and then turn them over. At that time, the council felt they wanted to see all of it, and then basically turn them over while the city staff would make copies and pass them on to the city council. Subsequent to that, obviously you saw at least one input of asking the council to reconsider hiring a professional recruitment firm. I personally, like I did at the time, I think that's a good idea. I realize it is expensive. And what I would suggest if the council wants to do that is we go out again with kind of a mini RFP process, see what we get in the way of responders and the approximate cost. But I don't think we'll probably get a lot of people much outside the 15 to 20. We might find somebody that will go down to 10 or 12, or we might see some come back closer to 25 or 30. But I would guess that most of these funders will be in that 15, 20, maybe $22,000 range. And usually that's a fairly encompassing price. Usually the exception to that is they normally do not include in their fee that this is charged separately advertising. Now, I don't know what we spend in or the COG spend in advertising. It wasn't a lot this last time. I think it was just about $1,000, maybe a couple $1,000. So advertising expenses usually are not big ones because nobody much does the newspaper ads, the big ads that used to be common back a long time ago, which were always very, very expensive. So if the council well, obviously, I'm sure you want to discuss it, but, so again, I think that the choices are about the same as they were, 4, 5, 6 months ago. Do you want to do it in-house? Do you want to involve the council of governments again? Or do you want to seek and find an outside recruiting firm or agency? Another option too is the League of Oregon Cities to conduct a recruitment. I think they were a little below that. I think their bid was around 12 or 13,000, although they didn't cover quite as many things. They could charge extra for mailing and some other stuff that some of the private companies didn't charge extra for. But their bid was a bit lower than the 2 or 3 others that we got back at the time. So I do personally prefer that we move forward sooner rather than later. I think that's the preference of probably most of you or all of you, and I think that's a good thing. There are life cycles in cities, just like there are life cycles in corporations, and where a corporation kind of, or a private nonprofit organization even, is to kind of pull in the horns, kind of reevaluate their goals, their purposes, and where they want to go next. And I think once, while you're in that process, it's good to come out of that process with some good folks to help implement that and make that happen. And as you know, I've been interested in retiring for over a year now, so I certainly support that. And again, I think just in my own experience, I think that's a good thing for communities to go through. And so I can say in good conscience, I appreciate the fact you guys are doing that, getting new goals, wanting to bring in a new city manager. And I think the community would be better off with that process where, I don't mean like in a rush, but done more quickly than more slowly.
I
Discussion?
strongly believe we get going on the outside firm search, and I would like to see it. I think width is positive here, too narrow geographically or our requirements. The wider the view at first, the better. I know we've always used some info from people about different firms and different paths, but I tend to agree with them. I'd like to see what the country has to offer, because we are such a livable place, like Shelley pointed out. So,
There seem to me to be 2 basic issues with the poor recruitment result we got that I've heard, and there's some more. One is that there was just a too narrow a scope for the target, and the other was that I'll just put a label on it, that it's really got a little bit of bad press and some disinterest out there. And so my question would be, to get a national firm would tackle the scope problem. Is there something that we need to do in-house to tackle the perception problem?
Now, if I may,
Go ahead.
I should try to address that a little bit. One of the things that the professional firms do is they actually do proactive mailings. Like I've gotten mailings, colored brochures, 3 or 4 pages. So what they do is they know all the city managers in every state in the country, because they get the list from their respective council of governments. And they typically go through, well, how many of those city managers have 10 years experience, or how many of those city managers have worked on community development projects or economic development projects, or whatever that community has indicated to them as a high priority. And then what they normally do is then, they develop a kind of a long list of, here's 20 or 50 or 100 or 200 city managers that seem to kind of fit what this community is looking for, and they mail them, a nice letter or folder, brochure, here it is, and, with a nice letter saying, we believe that you would be a good fit for XYZ community, and we would earnestly solicit your application. And I can tell you, getting those, and I've never applied or responded to one of them in the 13 years I've been here, but whenever I get one, I feel pretty good. I think, well, yeah, maybe that would be a nice community to work for. They kind of seem to think they might want me. And I realize, it's still a process to go through, and doesn't mean anything as far as actually getting hired. But I think that's a good thing that those national recruitment firms do that is, well, really impossible for council of governments to do, but I think even very difficult for something like the League of Oregon Cities to do.
What I was going to say is, Floyd and I have talked about this. One of the things I would like to do as the mayor is write a letter, and then get us to all basically get in together on a letter that we would kind of talk about our town and what's going on and the positive changes that we've got and the forwardness that we've got, and have it from the city council and the mayor, and include that in the packet. And I think that would be one positive way to kind of set some tone, you know, because we can't put our heads in the sand. There have been some issues in the past, and we've got to admit that, but we've got to say, hey, we move forward.
Yeah, I think, you know, just how we say that, you know,
Oh, yeah.
it makes a big difference.
Yeah,
in-
no,
absolutely.
We don't want to crawl too much,
Yeah.
and yet we want to, you know, say enough to say, you know, things are really great here, we got a good bunch, and
Yeah, I agree.
we're not fighting
It's a
among
good point.
ourselves.
Absolutely.
Also, before all that, if we could get a list of what your desirable qualities are.
Right, and so one of the questions would be is the timing. I can do kind of a mini RFP with as many companies as I can find, including the ones that have been suggested to us, of course. And usually they're pretty quick at getting back responses, because obviously they want the business. So I could bring it back, you know, hopefully we could have even something for the 8th. You guys can make a decision, hey, let's hire, you know, ABC firm. And then I would try to arrange a meeting between one of their principals as quickly as possible. We had that before, but I think it would be good to follow up. And again, what are the values, what are the qualities of a candidate that this council is looking for? We had one, we kind of had a quick version of that with the old council, but I think it would be better to redo that, particularly with the new council.
Is there any merit in having the council be able to meet with that principal, or is that something staff should do?
No, that's what I'm saying, council definitely needs to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if we could get a list of the qualities, either everybody emails them to me or Paul.
Preliminary list would be helpful.
So that we could
Yeah.
put that in the RFP,
Yeah,
so we could get
That would be good.
going.
that would be helpful, absolutely.
Do these
Good idea,
firms-
Linda.
Do these firms only go through the list of existing city managers, or do they also look at other managers generally with?
They typically do include in their search, but it's a good question to follow up, and I will, and we do the quick RFP to find out where, because I know that they've contacted people in other professions, business people, et cetera. But I don't know how they access those names or how they hear about those folks, or that I'm not sure.
Because I know there's a lot of really capable managers around the world that haven't worked in the.
Yeah, private sector, sure.
Let me step back for just a
there's more
second.
possibilities.
Do we get a consensus that we want to go with the national firm? That would be
You
the.
know,
the
I actually think we should do this by motion, because I believe the last time we set up the system, it was by motion, and if we're gonna amend what we did last time, I'd like to see that by, I mean, it could be by, it doesn't have to be by roll call vote, but it should be by motion, by second.
I would make a motion that we use a national firm to search for our new city manager.
I'll second that with comment, and support that, because generally, you know, we have a, this is how you measure the $30 to $50 million city budget, you know, $20,000 to $30,000 to do it right, in the scheme of things, is worth it.
Yeah, it's gonna be the best money we spend potentially.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we use a national search firm for the city manager hiring process. All in favor? Oh, please, Mr. Reed.
No, my suggestion was just to make sure that it was clear, is that what we're authorizing is for John to search, to get quotes, to proceed with a national firm at this point. I think that's implicit in the discussion, but I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Okay, try that again. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. So I guess let's jump back to the plan then. So if you will get to me or Linda, either one, your desired qualifications, maybe Tuesday?
Tuesday, Wednesday.
We really want to get moving on.
Yes, we do, so let's
Let's
say.
try Tuesday.
Could we get a copy of the previous ones emailed to us, so we just kind of work off of those?
It's on the website.
Those still posted?
Oh, is it?
I think the
Okay.
job descriptions are all posted, so.
Okay.
At least they work.
And in the meantime, I'll start on a letter, and then I'll start circulating it between different counselors so that we can get a nice letter together that will express our, come to Lebanon thoughts.
And don't forget the the quality DVD that the chamber puts on.
Actually, that's very nice.
In fact, I hope we can get that, maybe from the chamber, she's got it. Get that on our YouTube site too. Okay, any other business? Meeting's adjourned.